said that's right. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our February General Council meeting. Welcome to our live streamers. Welcome councillors. Welcome to our officers. Welcome to the executive leadership team that have been working very, very hard this week, as they always are. And welcome Pastor Stephen Jench. We will get to you soon. And it will never be soon enough to hear your dulcet tones leading us in prayer this morning, but we look forward to that. Councillors, I think we've got a fairly straight agenda run through to about lunchtime today. We've got an important get-together then. But look, I think the agenda is pretty much covered across all of our departments, and obviously we'll get into those as soon as we can. Well, councillors, we are all present, as I can clearly see. There are no apologies. I respectfully suggest there may not be any leave of absences required, given that you've got one last shot for the 13th of March, I think. So, councillors, I don't believe you have a leave of absence required. All good? Thank you. And as I always do, on behalf of our community, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. As I said before, Pastor Stephen Jench is here with us this morning from the Emerald Lutheran Church, and it might be that you'll be the second last member of the Churches Together that will actually lead us in prayer. And can I welcome you this morning, Pastor Stephen, and you can lead us in prayer. Thank you.
I'll begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Friends, recently I heard a little story which immediately captured my attention because it's got a very helpful message but presents it in an extremely unusual way. Once a parishioner was uncertain about what he should be doing in his life. Frustrated by the lack of clarity, he went to his pastor for some helpful advice. Although he was struggling to understand what he was actually feeling, he tried to explain his plight to the minister in the most accurate way. The experienced clergyman listened intently. Then, when the man had finished speaking, the pastor thought deeply about what he'd heard. His fingers formed the shape of a steeple as he pensively considered the matter. Finally, he said to the man, "You need to wait until you get to the corner." This was a very vague and obscure response, and obviously left the man bemused, befuddled, and dumbfounded. Consequently, the pastor asked him this question: "Do you have an envelope?" The man did, but wondered why the pastor needed to know. The man had a letter which he intended to post later, and so he got it out of his briefcase and showed it to the pastor. The clergyman then told him to place his finger at the top right-hand corner near the stamp. Next he said, "Keep moving your finger forward along the top edge towards the left-hand side." The man started doing this very slowly. The pastor asked him to pause briefly. Then he gave the following explanation. In everyday life, none of us know how far we're along the top edge of the envelope. Our only option is to keep going forward until we reach the corner. The wise people in life always know that we keep moving forward until it's obvious that some course adjustments need to be made for one reason or other. The secret in life is clear. We keep moving forward until we reach some sort of corner. When I first heard this story, it immediately grabbed my attention because it's got some excellent advice in life, especially for leaders. As leaders, we keep striving to move forward until it's clear that we reach a corner of some type, and so need to adjust our direction and goals. When Moses first became the leader of the Israelites, God gave him this excellent advice in Exodus 14. Tell the people to move forward. Forward is obviously one of the key directions in leadership. Obviously, David Livingstone, the famous African missionary and evangelist in the 19th century, believed this. He was known as the kind doctor, and he travelled over much of Africa, the African continent. Livingstone once said, "I'll go in any direction as long as it's forward." But Moses also recognised the importance of corners. At one time in Exodus 18, the father-in-law of Moses, a man named Jethro, came to Moses and gave him some very wise and fitting advice. Moses listened and recognised the value in what Jethro was saying. He wholeheartedly took the situation on board and made some adjustments in what he was doing. He claimed the corner as his very own and made the necessary alterations. God continue to bless you as a council. God continue to bless your leadership in whatever you do. God continue to bless you as you wisely balance the two crucial aspects of leadership, striving forward in your goals and in your intentions, and also making the necessary course adjustments when the various corners come along. Let's pray. Gracious Father, please bless the council as they meet this morning. Please bless their discussions, their deliberations, and their decisions. Please continue to help them in all their acts of service. Indeed, help all of us, whatever we do, to live for the good and the benefit of others. In particular, please help us to keep travelling forward and grant us the wisdom to act wisely whenever all types of corners appear. We ask this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Stephen.
Thank you. God bless.
Mayor, my apologies. Leave of absence for the 13th of March of National Championships
Right.
to attend.
Well, quite happy to go back to you, Councillor Brimblecombe. Thank you, Pastor Stephen. So, councillors, we might just go back to that, please. The leave of absence required for Councillor Brimblecombe for the 13th of March. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Moriarty, seconded Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Thank you.
My apologies, Mayor.
That's all right. It wasn't as impressive as the prayer, but Charlie, it was necessary.
Very wise words.
Yes, exactly right. Anyhow, I'm glad that on reflection you caught it up. All right. Councillors, we move on to our agenda for today, and that starts with the confirmations of the minutes of the previous meeting from General Council meeting for the 24th of January. Is someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Carpenter, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. Councillors, have a look at those, as we normally do. A couple of development applications, obviously with lots of conditions, was in those minutes, and I think we've got probably a revisit of one of them today, I think, in our agenda. A couple of record of proceedings. Right, councillors, they've been moved and seconded. Any questions before I... All good? All right, it's moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? That's carried, councillors. Thank you very much. Any business arising out of those, questions or otherwise? And you can see probably from the colonisation that obviously there's as I said before, there's a revisit to one of those agenda items there today. All good. Review of outstanding meeting actions, as you can see, is very, very close to keeping track with, obviously, our deliberations. Is there any questions there? And councillors, we're getting very short of time to add, sorry, Councillor Rolfe. Oh, hang on, sorry, Councillor Brimblecombe.
Oh.
You're still on the air. You rattled yourself this morning. Yeah. Councillor Rolfe.
Mayor, in the upcoming items for General Council meeting, there is still a deferred, the report back from the LJQ annual conference, and I wonder whether that might be,
Something for the last meeting, or?
well, it's gone past. It's
Yeah,
just,
yes.
you know, it's,
Yep.
it would have been in Councillor, in CEO Houlihan's repertoire, I
Yep.
suppose. So maybe needs to be just
Yeah, it needs to be obviously referred to and updated.
removed from that. Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll revisit that. Thank you. All right, councillors, any conflicts of interest?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I
Yep.
have, in item 12.2.3, major asset naming application, Bridgman Park Capella. We'll like to leave the room while that discussion is happening, due to a personal relationship I have with the Ford family.
Yep,
Thank you.
And that's consistent, I guess, councillor
Yes.
Cypher, with your declarations you've made in the past. Thank you. Other councillors, any other conflicts? Well, councillors, I'll declare one in the item 12.4.1, which is the proposed sale of excess raw water allocation on the basis of a conflict in my previous engagements as a licensed water trader. So I'll leave the room for that discussion. So, Councillor Rolfe, you do get to exercise your deputy mayoral powers today, so thank you for that. Right, Mr Acting CEO, there is no petitions? No. All right, thank you. All right, councillors, decision action reports. The first report today sits under our Chief Financial Officer, Arun Diaz, and that is obviously our monthly finance report for January 2024. I'll hand over to you, Arun, to introduce your team. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors. The monthly finance report is presented to council for adoption as at period ending 31st of January 2024. This report provides progress made against the Budget Review 1 and is in accordance with Section 204 of the Local Government Regulations. I will now invite our Manager of Finance, Helen Kirby, to present the report in detail. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you, CFO. Through the Chair, and good morning, councillors. The tabled report presents a detailed overview of Council's financial performance at the end of January, measured against Budget Review 1. Budget Review 1, which was adopted on the 22nd of November, reported a revised surplus of 2.9 million and a total budget of 295.4 million. At the end of January, the year-to-date operating result is favourable to budget by approximately 9.8 million, due mainly to the timing of actual receipts and payments compared to budget forecasts. Year-to-date operating revenues exceed budget by 1.4 million and relates to the timing of interest received on cash balances. Operating expenses at the end of January are tracking under budget by 8.4 million, reflecting the timing of spend incurred on contractors and consultants and depreciation not yet recognised on assets. At 58% of the way through the financial year, actual capital expenditure is at 25% of the full year budget. However, when commitments of 38.6 million are factored in, the total year-to-date spend increases to 62.8 million, which is almost 65% of the full year CapEx budget. Council's total cash balance at the end of January is $101 million, of which some is restricted and is not available for discretionary use. The timing of the actual spend on capital works projects has an obvious impact on the level of cash outflows. The issue of the second half rates notices this Thursday, with the due date of the 2nd of April, will increase cash inflows over the next few months as this levy is collected. Borrowings stand at 72.7 million, with 54% of this total related to Council's business activities of airport, waste management and water utilities. A decision is yet to be made on the requirement for borrowings this financial year to fund capital projects and will be assessed as part of the development of next year's budget. Combined overdue property-related debts for rates and water are 9.1 million at the end of January, which is a very minimal reduction from the prior month. This reflects the lack of recovery action undertaken over the last couple of months due to the Christmas-New Year period and resourcing constraints in the rates team as a result of vacancies. As mentioned earlier, the second half rates levy will be issued this Thursday and recovery action will be reinstated in full in accordance with the policy as part of the collection of this levy. About 1,100 ratepayers have now signed up to have their rate notices issued by email. We will include details of how to register for the e-notice service with the mail out of the second half rates and water levies over the next few months and expect the take-up of this service to increase significantly by the time we issue the first half notices next financial year. Council also issues tax invoices for other works and services provided to the community, which are called sundry debtors and are different to a rate account. These debtors stand at 2.1 million, of which only 747,000 is actually overdue. The remaining balance represents current invoices raised in January, and these people have 30 days from the date of invoice to make payment. The majority of the overdue debtors relates to the Virgin Australia debt following the voluntary administration of the company in April 2020. The administration process is now considered finalised with the payment of the final dividend on the 14th of December last year. A report was tabled at the Audit Committee meeting last week to seek endorsement for officers to make a recommendation to Council to write off the balance of this debt. A report will be tabled at the General Council meeting on the 13th of March to seek approval from Council to write off the debt of $425,979.26 against the loss allowance provision currently recognised in Council's balance sheet. There will be no impact on the operating result this financial year as the amount of the write-off will not exceed the loss allowance provision that was recognised in previous financial years. Of Council's 4 business activities, only Airport recorded a year-to-date operating surplus at the end of January. This result from the airport was approximately $220,000 ahead of the budget forecast and reflects an increase in passenger and car parking numbers from the previous month. The waste management business activity recorded a year-to-date operating deficit of $191,000 against an anticipated surplus of $472,000. This unfavourable result is due to an increase in staff overtime and the timing of payments to contractors. The year-to-date forecast for sale yards was an operating deficit of approximately $74,000 at the end of January. However, due to a reduction in revenue, the actual deficit recorded was higher at $176,000. A more favourable year-to-date result than forecast was recorded for the combined water and sewerage business. The actual deficit of $3.9 million at the end of January compares to the forecast deficit of $7.4 million and reflects lower than expected spend on contractors, consultants, temporary staff and external plant hire as a result of timing. That concludes the report, and a recommendation is made that Council adopts the monthly finance report for the period ended the 31st of January 2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. And I guess the headline there is certainly this report is very much influenced by timing.
Correct.
And certainly not a great time to get, I suppose, you know, the more settled pattern and trend, certainly in the budget. But very, very pleased to see that expenditure on capital works obviously at I think at a pretty good level. 65 million is certainly a big achievement when it's added together, certainly for this time of the year. So, Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mayor. I sent an email to CFO and also to Manager Helen yesterday about a query about the financial assistance grants on page 42 of 212 in the Statement of Comprehensive Income with an actual year-to-date of 237,000, which is 2.58% of the full year budget of 9.18 million to be received. And I asked the question of, seeing we've only got another 6 months before end of year, have you received any indication that we will receive the full amount? And yeah, so anything else? Thank you, Helen.
Thank you through the chair. So the amount received to date actually relates to this year's payment. So
Yes.
when they made the prepayment last last year in June, which was very late. We only knew, I think, a couple of days before the 30th of June. That was an estimate. So these smaller amounts, I guess, that are coming through each quarter, you know, are just an adjustment on that related to CPI. But you're correct, we have as part of our budget assumptions for this year, we're anticipating that we will receive a prepayment of next year's grant by June this year. So that forms the basis of our budgeted revenue for the financial assistance grant.
I'd ask that if the CFO has anything further to add to that, please.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Councillor Roth, only on the point that, yes, we do budget for almost 90 to 95% of the advance payment of the FAGs. Last year, there was some speculation that it would not be received, but I think, as Helen mentioned, it was received just a day before, on the 30th of June. We do expect that trend to continue for this year as well, but something for council and for management also to consider in terms of budgeting for next year as well, for 24-25, to take these factors into consideration.
And thank you, Councillor Roll, for that question, because it has a serious implication onto the, you know, the final position of council. And I think those that like to follow, I guess you'd say, you know, our incremental sort of position during the year, that impact. And as you raised, Helen, the fact that I think we were in the the national conference, and the federal government obviously made that very, very instantaneous decision to make that call on the prepayment on the 27th or 28th of June, which has a significant implication, and certainly the quantum of our financial assistance grant is the difference between, I guess, surpluses and deficits, you know, which obviously has a big impact on our bottom line. So it's a really good question. Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. Councillor Cypher.
Oh, sorry, you must have, I thought Megan was next.
I flicked mine off.
Oh.
But someone else needed to respond, but you go.
Yeah, you're off all that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it's been restored.
Thank
so
you.
Councillor Daniels. Yeah.
Through the chair to Helen. Great to see the take-up of the e-notices for the rates and water. I mean, I know it's only a small amount in comparison to how many notices that exist. When there is a bigger take-up, will it represent like a cost saving to council and an efficiency, the e-notices?
Just through the chair, it definitely will in terms of our postage and our, you know, and I think it will be much more efficient dealing via email. That's correct. Yeah.
Obviously, the efficiency, for the rate it's a big
That's correct. That's correct.
Thanks, Helen. Councillor Cypher.
Thank you. Just a thank you for including that table with the borrowings and what the other breakdown of those borrowings were. I think it's really important for transparency to actually understand, because actually I'd forgotten about half those. They've been there a long time, some of them.
That's
so
correct.
Thank you very much for including that so that people understand. Thank you.
I think in Councillor Cypher, in reflection of the additional ratios now, it's good to have those borrowings as a different ratio to have added to the bigger picture. Councillor Cruz, did you renege on your opportunity, or you wanted to go? You're off. Yep.
Through the chair, I was just going to say, Helen, with regards the e-notices, is there thoughts of that if they're, well, I guess if you're applying for an e-notice, you're, you know, probably someone that is intent on paying your rates notice, so perhaps it's not an important thing, but is there any thoughts about sending, like, using that as a facility to send out any outstanding notices? Like, I know there's legislation with regards, once it's, you know, gets passed to over to a debt, pardon me, a debt recovery agency, but is there any thoughts about you, like, or, you know, sending those out via email as well?
Just through the chair, really good question. And, you know, I'm assuming once they sign up to e-notices, we will do, you know, reminder notices will also be sent via email. In terms of if they're referred to the external debt recovery, I'll take that on notice and get back to you, Councillor Cruz, on, you know, just in terms of the legislation, how that's dealt with. Yeah,
No worries.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Questions, anyone? Good. All right, councillors, that financial report there, and as Helen concluded at the end of her presentation, that we adopt that monthly financial report for the period ended 31 January 2024. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Roll, seconded by Councillor Carpenter. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you, Arun. Councillors, we move along from the Chief Financial Officer to communities. The 12.2.1 on our agenda is the Community Grants Round 1. And I'll hand over to General Manager John McDougall, and he can introduce his team who are going to present this report. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, good morning, councillors. The Community Grants Program provides opportunity for community groups and organisations to seek grants to support their local projects. This contributes to the quality of life and livability of the Central Highlands. The program runs 2 rounds per year. I'll now pass over to our Community Development and Engagement Officer, Chantel Macklin, and Coordinator Arts and Engagement, Katerina Hatzipenny-Goddess, to tell us more. Over to you, team. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager McDougall, and through the Chair. The Community Grants Program offers community the opportunity to apply for the grants in 3 categories. The categories are Community Assistant Grant, which is for organisations with a community focus. Their main objective is to provide the community benefit outside of the sport and recreation activities. Funding is to the maximum of $5,000. The second is the Sports and Recreation Assistance Grant. This is for organisations whose objective is to provide organised sports and recreation activities. Funding is to the maximum of $5,000. And the third is the Community Improvement Grant. This is for both community-focused organisations and sports and recreation organisations with the aim of achieving aspirations for the community. Funding is to a maximum of $20,000. The allocated budget for the Community Grants Program this financial year is $330,000, shared between the 3 categories. After round 2 of 2023, a total of $165,000 was available for this round. The Community Grants Assessment Panel met on the 7th of February to assess the Round 1 2024 applications against the criteria outlined for the Community Grants Program guidelines. This round, Council received 12 community grant applications. Of these, 1 application was ineligible and 11 eligible. Eligible applications totalled $95,168.76. The panel recommends that all of the 11 eligible applications will be fully funded to the value of $95,168.76. The list of grants nominated for endorsement is included in this report. Projects across the 3 categories include a community assistant grant to purchase the resources to support the delivery of free allied health sessions for children, a sports and recreation grant to purchase the uniforms for the new junior girls rugby program, and the community improvement grant to repair stables at the Springshaw Showgrounds. All applicants will be advised of their application's outcome in writing, with feedback made available to the ineligible applicant. The Community Grants Assessment Panel serves a 2-year term, with this round being the last assessment for the current group of members. On behalf of Council, I would like to sincerely thank the panel members for their contributions and commitment to the Community Grants Program over the last 2 years. Panel members' devoted support for the wider community of the Central Highlands is greatly appreciated. Nominations for the next assessment panel will open tomorrow until Tuesday the 30th of April, so that prospective members can be presented for Council endorsement before the next round that opens on the 15th of July. We will now hand over to councillors for any questions.
Beautiful, thank you. And Chair, Councillor Moreira, did you want to make some comments there?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you very much to all the officers who very competently support us with the community grant. So I'm, along with Councillor Burns, the council representatives on the assessment panel. I just wanted to say thank you very much, and also concur with your congratulations to, or thanks, I should say, and congratulations that they came on board. For the community members that participate in our panel, they give up quite a significant amount of time, and I noted that they really valued the opportunity to be involved. I just wanted to say that it was, of those eligible grants that came through, it was just to make sure that people know that they were of a high standard, so that's why they all got through. It was good to have funds there to fund all of those grants, which you will see cover most of the region as well, which is really good. So I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and congratulations to all those that are receiving their grants. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moriarty, and thank you for thanking those panel members. And you're right, it's you can see certainly within the breadth and certainly the quality of the applications now, it's our community is well and truly on board now with understanding the program, and certainly through you officers, you've made that, sometimes it's through experience and learning, but we get there in the end, and that's certainly a great result there, so thank you very much.
Sorry, Mr Mayor. Sorry,
Oh, sorry,
I forgot to make a point to because the panel members discussed this as well. You'll see that there, because of the round, really, normally we do get a lot more applications. It's just that because of the election and cycle, I suppose, it crept into the timing for when the grants could be open till. So that's why you'll see closing at the end of January. People are still probably just getting back from holidays and that sort of thing as well. So you'll note that there is a surplus left over of almost $70,000. And I know that the committee were keen to ask, would that go into adding on to community grants for next year, or, but anyway, I just want to know that we did have those conversations and point that out. So it's just, yep, there would have been more opportunity, or the timing extended out for more people to put in applications, but that's just what happened. Thank you.
There's that word timing again, it sort of sneaks in, doesn't it? I know Australians love to have that January, December, January time off, and obviously sometimes that affects the ability of organisations to get back into it. So that was a good point, well made. Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. Councillors, that recommendation is there that we approve $95,168.76 in round one of the Community Grants 2024 to fund the 11 applications, and they're columnised there for you per the current Community Grants Program Assessment Panel's recommendation guideline. Someone happy to move them? Moved by Councillor Moriarty. Sorry. A question, sorry.
One question before. I'm just curious about the Central Highlands Music Festival. They've got 2 grant applications in, one through RADF and one's through here. What is the difference, and why, should it be all through one funding? To me, that the buying sheet music would probably be something that would be connected to their festival.
Through the Chair, they are, the 2 applications are for the same event, so it is for that festival of bands. The group are eligible to apply for both. There isn't anything that precludes them from applying for both. So they have previously been successful in the Community Grants Program, and they've previously been successful in RADF as well. So they've made the most of those opportunities that are available. So there isn't anything that would preclude them from being eligible to make those applications. During the assessment, if it comes to a tiebreaker, at times we, in the past, have looked at other council assistance that groups may have received, if that might be a tipping kind of sway point, if we're having to choose and be more selective about who gets up and who doesn't. But that wasn't required in this case, so.
Okay, I'm just...
Yep.
was just curious as to why there was 2, and $3,500 is an awful lot of sheet music.
Mm. I guess the comparison is in that oftentimes some of the funding for projects that we have where we actually apply for several different funds at the same time, and obviously cumulatively to help with the load. So I think as long as there's a good set of guidelines in both cases, and people are really determined to do that, and no one's doubting their contribution, but it's a good question, Councillor Carpenter, so thank you. All right, so I've got Councillor Moriarty as a mover. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you, and thank you for sharing that money with our community, folks. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, well, that moves us right along to that next fund, obviously, that Councillor Carpenter just referred to, so the Regional Arts Development Fund 23-24. John, did you want to do the introductions again? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, the Regional Arts and Development Fund, known as RADF, is a partnership between Central Highlands Regional Council and Queensland Government via Arts Queensland. The program invests in local arts and cultural priorities to provide public value and build local capacity. I'll now hand over to our Coordinator of Arts and Engagement, Katarina Hatzipenny Goddess, and Manager Connected Communities, Suzanne Poulter, to tell you more. Thank you, team.
Thank you, General Manager McDougall. Through the Chair. On the 9th of February 2024, the Central Highlands Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee met as the RADF Program's assessment panel to assess applications for round 1 of the 2023-24 financial year program. The program has a total budget of $68,142, with $53,142 available for round 1. There were 5 applications, requesting a total of $50,581. Applications were assessed against the Arts Queensland 4 assessment criteria and Central Highlands 5 local priorities as listed in Council's RADF guidelines. After careful deliberation, all 5 applications are recommended for approval. These include the Central Highlands Music Festival for the 2024 Festival of Bands program to be held in May. Festival of Bands is an annual event which includes school and community bands and choirs from across the Central Highlands, culminating in a community concert. Musicians will travel across the Central Highlands to perform and teach music students, while also hosting rehearsals for the concert with local musicians and choirs. 2024 is the 10th anniversary of this Festival of Bands event. Second is the Emerald Art Group for a series of pastel workshops with artist Maxine Thompson. Maxine will host a 2-day introduction to pastels workshop and a 2-day pastel portrait workshop at the Emerald Art Group rooms in August 2024. The workshops will be available to the Emerald Art Group members and the community. Third is the Blackwater Art Society for a series of workshops with various artists to develop and learn new skills from March through to August 2024. Artists included in the workshop series include Andrea Chapman for a 2-day watercolour and oil painting workshop, Catherine Dowden for a 1-day charcoal drawing workshop and 2-day ink painting workshop, and Maxine Thompson for a 2-day pastel workshop. These workshops will be available to members of the Blackwater Art Society and any community members who wish to attend. The fourth is the Mountain Magic Creative Arts Magic Mountain Creative Arts Festival. This is the 3rd year of the event in Springshaw. The Mountain Magic Creative Arts team are a group of volunteers who have been putting together a diverse program of art workshops over a 2-day weekend in May. This project brings 5 artists, local and regional, to run workshops in the Bohinia Community Hall in Springshaw. The workshops include Michelle Gray, glass blowing techniques, Raylene Bock, quirky garden art, Zelda Drotsky, leatherwork, Jemica Ostrovsky, metal and silversmithing jewellery, and Jolene Priddle and Joanne Kerr, floristry art. The 5th is the Emerald Pottery Club for a 2-day bathing beauty workshop with Jane Durand of Fried Muddy Clay Studio. Participants will create a female form with special attention to the geometry and structure of the head and facial features. The workshops will be available to the Emerald Pottery Club members and open to the community as spaces are available, and will be held between July and August 2024. The committee recommends these 5 applications to be approved to the value of $50,581, which will leave a remainder of $2,561 to roll over to round 2, which will have a total of $17,561 available. I'll now hand over to councillors for any questions.
Thank you. There's been a lot of staff here busy handing out money here, haven't there? So that's been great, and it was great to hear that certainly a lot of local artists that are involved in those workshops, and they're actually people that have created those skills here and certainly sharing them around. And I know Councillor Sypher, you do a bit of creative stuff with some of those things as well. Yeah. Councillors, questions on those applications? Charlie, was there anything to add there?
Just
hit your microphone, thanks, Councillor Brittlecombe.
not good with the microphone today.
We'll take that leave of absence back off you.
Just a note, we have $15,000 in reserve. It's up. Just a note for council if you would like to increase that or decrease that, up to council. I'd also like to thank the officers for a lot of the preliminary work that's done before those meetings. There's a lot of work and checking those applications. Much appreciated for the work they do, and also for the members that judge the we'll go through the applications. Just of note, I'll find my notes, sorry. Applications, hopefully I think they are easier for people to apply for there's been a change to those applications. Just for judging, send out the judging sheets, you know, with the assessment guide on how to do that. So,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. All right. Any other questions? Councillors, the recommendation is there in two parts that we received the minutes. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Moriarty.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, probably a comment and a question. It was good to see that the events are in a few different communities across the region, and I was just wondering, with the Magic Mountain Arts, is that like a regional one, or usually when you see the word mountain, you think of Springshore, but...
Through the chair, so that community group are based in the kind of Springshore Orion area, and so they run that event in Springshore. This will be the third event that they will be holding, and that's just, yeah, a group of community members who have wanted to bring some diverse art forms to the area, and inspired by Injune, and have created this initiative, yeah.
Right. Thanks, Councillor Moriarty. All right, councillors, as I said, in two parts. There's an approval required for $50,581 for the following columnised applications for the RADA Fund Round 1 in the 23-24 financial year. So then subject to, obviously, the Advisory Committee's recommendations. Is someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Brimacombe, seconded Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Councillor Cypher has declared a conflict in relation to 12.2.3, which is the major asset naming application for Bridgman Park. So Councillor Cypher has indicated she's going to leave the room for this discussion. Thank you. Councillor Cypher has left the room. Pardon me. Right, councillors, this still sits under John's stewardship in communities. This is in relation to an asset at Bridgman Park, and I'll let John do the introductions.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't take any more time up here. This has been discussed through council previously, but I will hand over to our Manager Parks and Recreation, Lisa Donlan, to talk you through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Communities. Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, the purpose of the report discusses options for naming of assets in Bridgman Park at Capella, subsequent to a revised application submitted to Council to name the bucking chutes within the showgrounds the Ross Ford bucking chutes. Additionally, it aims to secure confirmation regarding the naming of Bridgman Park and the Capella Covered Arena. The naming of council-owned or administered public places, structures and asset policy became effective on the 1st of February 2023. The policy includes a process for council to consider applications which council officers are working through with this application for the first time. Section 7 of the policy states any member of the community or council may initiate a request for naming or renaming existing council-administered public places, structures and assets using the application form available on the council's website. Proposal to name either a new or existing public space, structure or asset must be submitted on the relevant application form and include both detailed reasons and research material in support of that proposal. This application met those requirements.
Sorry, thank you. I apologise, councillors. Could you hear me?
Yes, you're very authoritative. So, yeah, we're used to it.
Just not very technical. On 24th of May 2023, an initial application was received from the Capella Rodeo Club. On 10th of October 2023, Council considered a report in its strategic and briefing forum on the results of the community consultation conducted in response to the application. The decision of the meeting was that given new information provided in the public consultation phase, officers would request the applicants consider amending their application to name the bucking shoots in honour of Ross Ford. It was noted that Council should also formally confirm the naming of the showgrounds in Capella and the covered arena to reassure community that these names will not be changed. The Policy Section 8, Public Consultations for Naming and Renaming of Major Assets, provides the scope of community engagement to be undertaken for a naming or renaming of major assets will be determined by the General Manager Communities on a case-by-case basis, having regard to anticipated community interests and sensitivities. Where public consultation of a proposal is warranted, it will be carried out by Council. How public comment will be invited will be at the discretion of Council and determined on a case-by-case basis. Council will respond to all properly made submissions. Public consultation on this application through the survey tool began on 10th of August 2023 and remained open until the 8th of September 2023. The policy also includes a process for Council to consider the removal of a current name. While the name of the showground, Bridgeman Park, has never been in question, the survey results and further information provided by respondents indicate that the arena, the subject of the initial application for naming, may already have been named the Capella Covered Arena. However, Council officers have not been able to find any evidence in the minutes of the Peak Downs Council that this formally occurred, noting that not all historical minutes are available for review. Other community respondents also indicated the covered arena was previously named Capella Covered Arena as part of an historical marketing campaign by Peak Downs Shire Council to brand all assets in that format. For example, the Capella Aquatic Centre, the Capella Cultural Centre and the Capella Covered Arena. Again, at this time, there is no written evidence the asset has a name formally agreed to by Council, so Council officers are proceeding with the naming application as part of this application. Section 9 of the policy, assessment and applications, state, Council will give due consideration to every proposal to permanently name public places, structures and assets. Applications to name major assets will be approved by Council. Applications to name minor assets will be approved by the General Manager Community. Approval of a proposal for a permanent name is only likely to be given in circumstances where Council is satisfied that the proposal meets sufficient criteria within the policy and the guidelines, where applicable is accepted by the nominee or related persons, satisfies assessment and diligence searches conducted by Council, includes a relevant history of the asset and the proponent, and is accepted by or within the community. When considering an application to name major assets, Council may approve the proposed name, amend the proposed name, recommend recognition of another kind, or reject the proposal. The policy does not require any specific consultation results that should be weighted, preferred, or even considered by Council in its decision-making. However, this application could be considered contentious in its original form. The policy also includes a process for Council to consider removal of a current name. While the showground name Bridgeman Park was never in question, the survey results and further information provided by respondents indicate the arena may already have been named the Capella Covered Arena as discussed previously. Other community respondents also indicate the covered arena was previously named the Capella Covered Arena as part of the campaign. I think that, have I read this section, councillors? I'm so sorry. I'll just start again from when considering an application to name major assets, Council may approve the proposed name, amend the proposed name, recommend recognition or another kind, or reject the proposal.
The following discussion at Strategic and Briefing, or following the discussion at Strategic and Briefing Forum, officers engaged in further consultation with the applicant, who has confirmed their preference and that of the Ross family is that council consider naming the bull shoots in Bridgman Park the Ross Ford bucking shoots. Officers also seek confirmation of the naming of Bridgman Park and the Capella Covered Arena as discussed at the Strategic Briefing Forum on 10th October 2023. So, councillors, our recommendation is that Central Highlands Regional Council agrees to name and confirm the naming of major assets, Bridgman Park, Capella Covered Arena and the Ross Ford bucking shoots. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for getting through that. And look, and thank you for the breadth and length of this, consultation that you did with the community. It really is important to them, and we were talking to them there last Friday night about just how important this is. So, Councillor Burns.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I think this is a good result. I just want to confirm, we're allowed to name things under the, when we're in care and maintenance?
Caretaker mode?
Yeah, caretaker
Yeah.
mode.
See why not?
Yeah, it would appear so. Thanks, Councillor Burns. Yep. Now, Councillor Daniels. Yep.
Thank you. And it's not, I know the decision's around the name, but I probably want to take the opportunity to ask, given that it was the first time we ran through this policy and went out to the community with it, was there some learnings around like how we might go about it for another time?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, there were some learnings. One of the challenges I think that we have in council is not having a deep understanding of the history of many of these assets, particularly the history prior to amalgamation. So in some ways the consultation was quite confronting for the applicant and people opposed to the application. It was a very well consulted application with many responses, several of them very detailed, and that allowed us to really build a history. So I suppose one of the learnings is that should always be part of the process. An initial part of the consultation is to establish a history of the asset if we're not sure of what it is. The other learning I think for our team was just that because these things can be very emotional, the applications are talking not just about the name of an asset, but the history and contribution of people in the community. Some recognised, some not, some who will never want to be recognised, and just trying to balance all of those expectations and needs. It has to be handled very sensitively. And I suppose as a test of the new policy, I think that the consultation phase worked very well because we were able to get the history, report to council on all of the information that came out of the consultation, and then have council give us some guidance on a way forward that will, hopefully balance all of those things within community and still honour the original application.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Daniels. A very good question. Look, I know Councillor Seifert declared her interest to not be in here, but she is very supportive of this in certainly the fact that this is part of her important community. Oh, and Councillor Cruz will talk about this in a minute, but certainly Roy and Gordon Ford, Ross's mum and dad's and uncle, has certainly been, long-standing people in the community. Ross's contribution is great. It was really, really important that Capella community were consulted on this, and as you say, interestingly, to actually catch not just this application, but certainly the other assets around it, which I think was a lot of certainty for community as well, that thought a lot of things were in place, but not necessarily so. So that is really the benefit, I guess, of this catch-up. So, Councillor Cruz.
Just through the chair. Just a couple of things to mention. Obviously, the history of Ross Ford and the Ford family going back, obviously goes back many, many years. Not only his, recognising his own personal triumphs in the rodeo arena, but the fact that he was able to nurture rodeo people, boys and girls coming up, high school rodeo, all of that. Also generous donations of facilities at the actual arena, potentially the bucking shoots. But I just would like to say, with regard to the consultation, I know it was thorough. But initially, the way in which perhaps it was worded needed improvement, because it did actually create quite a lot of angst in the community, angst that is still actually ongoing. So I personally think, while it's clear the intent of the policy is to recognise community members who have made a significant contribution, I personally think, like I will say that I am supportive of what is being presented to us today. But I think as a policy, the intent, I know the intent, but in this circumstance, it has actually done the opposite. It has been very, very divisive. So in its current form, personally, I would like to see a review of that policy, because and the initial consultation there needed to be so much consultation, because that initial stage was where there was a lot of angst in the community. So.
Thanks, Councillor Cruz. All right, councillors. No other comments? Oh, Councillor Moriarty.
Just one. Thank you. After, I suppose, just the point of understanding the history of some of those assets, and I suppose having worked with most of the former councils of Central Highlands, it's interesting that, you kind of like think that we do have that information at hand, and definitely the people that we can get that information from. Look, I'm supportive, and I think it sounds like it's the best possible outcome, especially if the Ford family are happy with the outcome. It just, I would like to make the point again that, when the officers, technical officers, are supported with good specialist community engagement, they can support these projects to have more, I guess, less divisive or emotive, impacts as a result of the communications and engagement. But well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, the recommendation is there that the Central Highlands Regional Council agrees to name, sorry? Oh, Councillor Cruz, yep, sorry.
Sorry, just through the chair. And just also two things. I do want to say that obviously a very, very emotive thing, and well done on coming to, bringing it to us in this manner. So, but also just on page 82, just on that second paragraph, can we just amend it to the Ford family rather than the Ross family, please?
I beg your pardon.
Yes. Well captured. Thank you, Councillor Cruz. All right, councillors, sorry, any more questions? I'm looking up, looking down. All good. Councillors, we agreed to name and confirm the naming of the major assets, so Bridgman Park, Capella Covered Arena, and the Ross Ford Bucking Chute. So is someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Brimacombe, second to Councillor Cruz. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Thank you. Councillors, we've been rolling along very, very well today here. Yep. Councillor Cypher's probably enjoying that little respite out there. So, councillors, what I was thinking, if we consider this next item 12.2.4, this donation request, we might break then for morning tea, and then obviously consider that amendment to the development application after that. Rebecca, if that's okay, we'll make that break. I say these very surreptitiously because is that appropriate, Marnie? Are we happy to do that? 10:15. Yep. That's fine. All right. I know I'm not the maker of smokos, so I know that obviously that's an important part. All right, thank you, Councillor Cypher. All right, councillors, the next agenda item is 12.2.4, which is in relation to a donation request from the Central Highlands Easter Sunflower Festival. So certainly under John's department again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will hand straight over to Lisa here. Councillors, you will be aware this is one of those annual festivals that is held within our community, and we've got a report today to seeking an approval here, but I will hand over to our Manager, Parks and Recreation, Lisa Donlan. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, General Manager, Communities. Councillors, I'll try to read the document properly this time, I promise. The purpose of the report seeks approval for sponsorship of the 2024 Central Highlands Easter Sunflower Festival. The communities of Emerald and Altona, Canada share a long-lasting twinning sister city relationship based on their shared interest in the sunflower industry. The communities of Central Highlands enjoy fantastic festivities due to the commitment and energy of the Central Highlands Easter Sunflower Festival members. Council has previously supported the Central Highlands Sunflower Festival Committee. The not-for-profit community organisation was established in 1974 to deliver the annual Sunflower Festival and the Queen Quest during the Easter weekend. The Sunflower Queen fundraising is divided into 70% of their chosen charities and 30% contributes to the operational cost of the hosting of the festival. While the initial application was made for sponsorship in October 2023, the venue bookings were not made by the applicant at that time. Several changes were necessary before the application could be costed and confirmed by officers. Final information was received in January 2024 when accurate in-kind costs were developed to be ready for council consideration. The organisation's sponsorship application notes Sunflower Festival and Sunflower sponsorship request. The week-long events and celebrations during Easter have united the community with entertainment and aims to bring all the towns of the Highlands together. The festival in quest promotes cultural tourism of the Central Highlands and supports and promotes the International Sister City Partnership with Altona, Canada. Participation in the street parade continues to grow each year, with more floats and clubs becoming involved, approximately 30 floats in the 2023 parade. The increasing numbers of parade spectators lining the streets, including the Avalon residents, is also evidence of a well-loved and supported event. There is a strong attendance at the Family Fun Day, which is free entry, including free rides and face painting, enabling all residents to enjoy festivities in their town with family and friends without financial difficulties. Music and Mingle was added in 2023 to address the reduced opportunities for live performers following COVID. This hugely successful addition saw close to 300 people enjoy local live music at the Emerald Botanical Gardens. Music and Mingle and the Sunflower Festival Art Exhibition promote and showcase local artists. These events represent strong value for money for the community, with the committee made up entirely of volunteers. The committee is seeking council support for the 2024 event to the value of $10,800. The financial statements for 2021 through to 2023 have been made available for officers and show the event as currently taking place will not be sustainable in the long term without increasing income. There are several aspects of the event that take place at a significant loss. Each year, Council hosts the annual welcome dinner in addition to sponsorship at a cost of $3,000. Council's financial support assists with expenses to run the festival, insurance costs, and hosting sister city visitors from Altona. A review of the organisation's reports over the past several years indicate that they have been unable to build any financial buffer, which would make future events self-sustaining, and it is only council sponsorship which ensures the event will go forward. The report seeks council's approval for sponsorship is outside of the Community Support Program policy, donation, sponsorship and fee waivers, and in accordance with section 9.2, approval of community support, and exit of the policy as follows. Events and program support, maximum cash sponsorship $3,000 per annum to a group and a combination of cash and in-kind support of $10,000. to provide support to community events or programs run by organisations other than council for the broad public benefit. The selection criteria states organisations must demonstrate that the event or program achieves the below listed benefits for which funding is being requested. They foster a sense of community pride, trigger positive media and other favourable coverage of the region, generate an increase in visitor numbers to the region, or for recurrent sponsorships demonstrates the sustainability of the event and or how reliant the event is on council funding through a business plan or audited financial statements. Approval of community support. All requests will be assessed and approved by relevant council areas within the program budgets under current levels of financial delegation up to $10,000 or through any alternative approval processes identified by supporting guidelines. All requests above $3,000 cash or $10,000 combined cash and in-kind must be brought before the council for consideration. So, councillors, we are here today with the recommendation that Central Highlands Regional Council approves the sponsorship request for $5,200 cash and $4,800 in kind for the 2024 Central Highlands Easter Sunflower Festival. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Can I just have a clarification there, Lisa, just on those figures? In the report it says $10,800 and then the recommendation, I think, is for 10,000 neat, is that correct?
That is correct, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
So the application is for $10,800.
Yep.
So that will be $5,200 in cash and $5,600
No, thank you.
in kind.
So I thought for a fleeting moment there it might have not exceeded the fact that you needed to bring it here, and obviously that could have been had that conversation. But thank you. No, thanks for the clarification. Councillor Moriarty.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. I was just trying to find out the difference between option one and the recommendation is, so the applicants asked for, the $10,800.
Yes.
And council's recommending that it be a neat $10,000 combining the cash and the in-kind. So it's $800 less than what the applicants asked for. I was struggling.
I think that was the clarity I think we just made. It's actually in option two. It says 6,000 cash and 4,800 in kind. So it would flip those back the other way. Lisa, is that appropriate? That's the numbers.
That's correct.
Yep. Sorry, go on.
Got you.
Yeah. So there'll be 6,000, 4,800 versus what the recommendation is. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and thank you very much. Just a couple of quick points to say that, and it's wonderful that we have our committee made up entirely of volunteers, and they work extremely hard to put this event on. It used to be like the Emerald event, but they've made it a Central Highlands event. So over the time trying to increase the event to being a Central Highlands event. I'm not sure if there's an opportunity going forward to even consider, looking at what are those events that are going to be our iconic events for the region as well. That was just a throwaway there. And also, because it's run by volunteers and the donations, it's just totally run on donations each year as well. It's a hard balance. The other thing that would have been interesting, for council to do the exercise, I noted with Central Highlands Development Corporation, when they do their events, they can do the assessment to see what benefit dollar value those events have brought into the region. So that might be another way of supporting these applications as well, and justifying the money that sponsorship that council's also providing. And just a quick question, if that's okay. So council allocate a certain amount of money for sponsorships, don't they, in their budget each year?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that's correct, councillor.
And I think last time we looked at events, there was still a reasonable amount left in there.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's correct, councillor. In the paper under the financial resourcing section, the donations and sponsorship budget for the financial year is $113,585. Currently, budget have allocated council have allocated $39,445 of that in sponsorship to date.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say that I support option 2. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Councillor Morati. Councillor Cypher.
Thank you. I was going to lead with the fact that as a council, we do need to have a serious look at what signature events or event we're going to have across our region, because this comes up every year. Every community in our region, volunteers run events, and they all believe that their event is the signature event for the year. That is just how everyone operates. My concern with not just this application, but a lot of not-for-profits who clearly identify that they are not sustainable alone into the future. So that is why we need to seriously look at what major events we're going to fund. There's two concerns I had with this. One was that it shows no, and they admit that they are not financially viable on their own. The other one was, and this is why they've requested this aspect of it, was insurance. If a group can't even afford their insurance, that's a big worry. So this is pretty much an all free for all for the community, but we shouldn't actually be encouraging everything for nothing. Like, surely some of this aspect of this can be actually an entry fee. It could be, and I know when I was heavily involved with the Multicultural Festival, that was one that was a drain. They couldn't be financially sustainable for that event without huge amounts of funding. So then there was a $5 entry fee introduced. It doesn't have to break the bank, but I think people need to be able to contribute something. You can't just rely on the public purse to continually fund everything. There has to be a small contribution, even if it is just $5 at the gate. I will support this, but the other question, I shouldn't have quite said that, but the other question is, how much did we fund, if you know off the top of your head, Lisa, the Multicultural Festival? Not the Multicultural Festival, the Gem Fest, whatever they call that now. How much funding, because I know in previous years we knocked back their full request, and I thought we'd knocked it back to about 7,500 or something like that. I think we have not funded a full 10,000 for quite a while.
I would have to come back to you on that, councillor. I recall that we did offer another option, and we have with this report. Option 3 offers the council reduces the level of support to a total of $7,500, including a cash component of $2,500 and an in-kind component, which should be of $5,000. So we have given council that option.
Yeah, I know that, but what I'm trying to find out is what have we done in the past for other major events? Because I thought we had gone pretty much in line with that $7,500 option for the Gem Fest and for other major events that have come to us. I thought we've never fully funded them for the last few years.
I think that is generally, we have generally tried to negotiate, and for councillors' information through you, Mr Mayor, apologies,
officers do work with community organisations before we bring even these larger applications forward to see where we can reduce the ask to be more within the budgets that are available to us. So there is a lot of discussion that happens with those groups even before the final application is made to try and shape that and make it more affordable. And then just the only exceptions to that in terms of events that I can recall are show societies, particularly Emerald Show Society. The sponsorship amount is larger, but generally this is one of the larger, 10,000 or above is one of the larger sponsorship application numbers that you see coming to council. And even those that are approved by General Manager Community tend to be much less than that.
Sorry, do you want to add some information? Just councillors, just with the other questions, just so we get a clearer picture, and I don't want to go too far off this subject either, but you got some other information there.
Yeah, through the chair, just in response to Councillor Cypher. So I believe the request was more than 10,000, but in 2021, so 28th of July, we approved financial support in the amount of $10,000 for the Gemfest Festival of Gems. In 23, which I don't believe this event went ahead, there was a request for more than that as well, but that event didn't go ahead. So off the top of my head, the request, so 2021 was substantially more than 10,000, and we landed on 10,000 in the room here. So that's just to give you a bit of guidance.
Yeah, I think what preceded that, we had a request for $25,000, I think, going back a little ways, and that was a different thing. I think the point here is, and just not to digress too far, is that I think that discussion about a prioritisation and an understanding of what are key regional events, we've done a few exercises around that previously. Gemfest is a very good example where there's now been a change, I guess, to the type of program and where that is, and involvement with community. So without us getting involved in what community then wants to put together, I think it's a case of, and I think Councillor Moriarty just said before, REM plan can actually provide some financial basis to the values, but there's other things like, its intrinsic value to community and what we think as of community values that we want to also have as well. So I think in this event, and given the timing of this application today, and I know that Sunflower Festival is Easter every year, I think it's more about clearly the salient points here are there's probably got to be a change to the way they obviously fund the festival, and they're probably hearing this right now as we speak, and certainly I think it's the message will have to be, though, I think, and a discussion for the next council about, making sure that there is a prioritisation around and an understanding. And I know the Development Corporation have some input into that, but obviously these are council interests as well, that actually that's a bigger conversation. And it is the fact that even like we've seen with Gemfest, there can be a real change, I suppose, very quickly, which makes it very, very hard then to have the policy's got to be strong, and I guess the guidelines around that, and that's a bigger discussion. So I think we need to recognise there's two things here. Councillor Roth.
Yep, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to John and Lisa. Just on page 102 of the agenda about the indicative value of services, and I would suggest that the music and mingle use of gardens with an indicative value of $0 is probably incorrect, because if it's music and it's the use of the gardens, so there's still an insurance cost, and as I've said I raised the question even yesterday, free events, somebody pays for free events, so who pays? So that's where, just a note, I'll support it, but it's just a note for future. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Roth. Councillor Daniels.
Thank you, Mayor. It's probably along the same lines that, anecdotally, it feels like a pretty significant event for Emerald and the Central Highlands, especially, I think, for, family, visiting family, and if not tourists coming through the area, but, to have the evidence. And I know there is a cost for those those economic assessments to be done by CHCC and rent plan, but it would be great along with that prioritisation. The question I have is really about, there's also a $3,000 towards a dinner that is part of the festival. The dinner wouldn't happen if it wasn't for, I guess, the festival and the visiting Canadian representatives. I just wondered why that wasn't included in the whole sponsorship.
It was in the discussion last time this came up, I think last year, and that's sort of, and when I said there's two things here, there's now three things, because within the festival itself, it's obviously the sunflower and the participants, but it's also the twinning or the sister city relationship. So I guess
a separate bucket.
We try to separate out the fact that we do have a sister city arrangement, as formal or informal as it is. The dinner is traditionally, they do it over their side. There's a gifts exchange between the two councils or the respective local authorities, and that's our contribution here. And I think we see that as that part of the celebration. The other community part of that is then very much so. That's how we've justified that in the past.
Okay.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Councillor Moriarty.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to add too that over the time, I think that the processes and the transparency in the processes and the application over this term of council have really improved. So there is that ability to make sure that the in-kind and the financial donations, because I remember when these groups were actually putting in, they were putting in for their financial contribution, sponsorship, and then council were taking out the in-kind as well. So there's been a lot of change. There's the application process now, and like, I'd just like to say congratulations to the committee for keeping going. They've been going for, I don't know how many, was it 30 or 40 years or something, and they've continued to keep going, and they're run on sponsorships. While council provide sponsorship, a significant portion of sponsorship comes from a whole range of businesses and organisations as well. Council's only one sponsor, and you're right. And I'd say that that's what this kind of sponsorship is about. How do we make sure that council is part of joining these kind of organisations who gather a great deal of funding from other places to actually put on a free community event? There are opportunities definitely at the different aspects of these, because there's so many different events that culminate in the overarching Central Highlands Sunflower Festival. Yep, there may be opportunities to charge, but I think, and that might be going forward, the committee may think of that. And also, I'm sure that the group are looking at their ongoing business improvement and planning. So, I just think I'd still like to support option 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moreira. Councillor Cruz.
Through the chair, I was just looking like we have just approved community grants, 3 of which were well over 10,000. So I'm just wondering, with this application, is there a chance that potentially, they would be suitable for those community grants? And were they, like, if they are, were they made aware of that? Because
Thank you, through your chair. Councillor, I'm not sure, but Suzanne is still in the room, and I'm going to defer whether a sponsorship of that size for an event would meet the guidelines of the grant.
I think before I ask Susan, because I think we speculate here about who might and who whatever. It's more about, I think, Councillor Cruz, it's there's been a tradition, I suppose, over a number of years that it's come here like this, as separate from those other funding packages. The message might be going forward in terms of any consideration of this today might be to advise people that that might be the opportunity going forward. But certainly, I think that's another discussion about the events, what they are, where they should fit, and that general, I suppose, consultation again. We talked about it this morning. Applicants who are now way more proficient at actually applying because we've had that good engagement to make sure that people understand how to do it. The quality of that's changed. This is probably just good advice, I guess, in the short term. But I think the question you asked is relevant, yeah.
Yeah, so the reason I asked the question is because the grant aim, and it says the aim of Central Highlands Regional Council's Community Grants Program is to provide assistance to local community groups and organisations making positive contributions to the quality of life in the local government area. So if that's the aim of the grants, I'm just sort of thinking it sort of provides a little bit of context. I think probably providing context to exactly what Councillor Cypher was getting to, context with regards the support that we provide to other organisations and events as well is good, just to give us a bit more of a holistic approach. But I'm supportive of, you know, a sponsorship.
Yeah, good advice. Well, look, councillors, I'm going to, I think, look at this. I'll try the first recommendation. We've got a few options. We'll keep firing a few shots if we don't get there. So in the first instance, the recommendation from our officers is the sponsorship request for $5,200 in cash and $4,800 in kind. Is someone happy to move that, the current recommendation? Moved by Councillor Cypher, seconded Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Right, well that one's carried. I did hear that you had a preference for option 2, but Councillor Moriarty, we've obviously decided on that. So councillors, thank you. Thank you, and that's a good conversation. And clearly, Lisa and Suzanne obviously being present here, that's a discussion and a good engagement that we can take forward. And thank you certainly to that Sunflower Festival Committee that's obviously busily working away right now, I can tell you, for that coming up. All right, councillors, I said that... Sorry, is there some concern?
Just making sure we've just got it right there.
Yep, okay. Right. So, councillors, I said we would break.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, sorry. I'm happy to have my name recorded.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Is that actually just everyone, is that voted recorded normally? You just record it? Yep, thank you. Oh, only request. Okay, thank you. Well, Councillor Moriarty's requested that. Yep. Right. We'll adjourn the meeting at 10:28. Councillors, we might come back in. What are you thinking, Marnie? 11?
We'll sort it out.
11 o'clock. So, councillor, take a well-earned break, and we'll come back. Thank you. All right, councillors, we'll resume our meeting at 10:57. We're all in the room. Our officers are here. Our executive leadership team are all in place. So I'll get to our next agenda item, and apologies to Rebecca for extending your smoko break. But councillors, it's item 12.2.5, and it's relation to, as I mentioned at the agenda briefing this morning, that this related to the recent DA application we made. So I'll hand over to John and he might introduce Rebecca this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't take any time. I will hand straight over to Rebecca McDonald, our Acting Manager, Planning and Land Management, to talk you through this report for decision. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. Through the Chair, this report is presented to Council for decision as the applicant, CQ Inland Port, has submitted change representations during the applicant's appeal period to seek a negotiated decision notice for the development approval decided by Council on the 24th of January 2024. The approval that was issued is for a development permit for reconfiguring a lot by subdivision, one lot into 4 lots over lot 10, RP 897798, located at 82 Rundle Road, Comet. As the original development approval was approved by Council at a General Council meeting, the change representations that have been lodged are required to be presented to Council for decision today. Please note that the change representations that have been lodged are very minor in nature, and then we're not looking to revisit any other aspects of the approval. There's been no changes to the approved plan or any other conditions. They're just focused on one condition today. So the change representations were lodged by the applicant on the 31st of January, seeking to negotiate one condition of approval, being condition 13, which relates to the provision of electricity and telecommunications infrastructure to the proposed lots. The current condition requires all lots to be connected to electricity and telecommunications prior to the survey plan being endorsed by Council. The proposed amendment to condition 13 is set out within the officer's report. I will just note, councillors, that there is a typo on page 11 in that amended condition. And I'll read out what that is in a second, but the amended condition 13 seeks to change the wording of the condition so that only lots 3 and 4 are required to be connected to electricity and telecommunications, and evidence from the relevant service provider is submitted to Council for proposed lots 1 and 2, so that these lots can be connected at a future date. So as I noted, there is an error in the proposed condition wording. The last sentence should read, submit to Council evidence proposed lots 1 and 2 can be connected to reticulated electricity and telecommunications to the standard of the relevant service provider. The reason for the requested amendment...
Just so people do catch that, it's on 111.
Page 111,
yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
The reason for the requested amendment supplied by the applicant is due to the fact that the location and capacity of electricity required to service proposed lots 1 and 2 is unknown until such time a future use or further subdivision of this land occurs. The applicant has identified that providing an electricity connection at this time would be premature and serve no benefit to the proposed lots. But please note that electricity and telecommunications are already available to the proposed lots 3 and 4. Whilst it's acknowledged this is a standard condition that would be imposed for a subdivision ordinarily, a suitable alternative to providing a physical connection to electricity in rural areas is evidence from the service provider to demonstrate that the existing electricity infrastructure located along the road or in proximity to the site has capacity to cater for a future connection if and when required. The benefit of this approach is that it removes the need to provide a physical electricity supply to the large balance lot or the large lot and avoids costly relocation work in the future if the pole has not been installed for the correct purpose or at the correct location. In addition, the lots form balance lots that may be further subdivided in the future as part of the development of the Yamala Enterprise Precinct. Therefore, it is likely that there may be further subdivisions of Lot 1 and 2, if which approved and constructed would require the extension of electricity at that point in time. In relation specifically to the telecommunications infrastructure, though, submitting evidence that the property has access to mobile broadband or satellite telecommunications is appropriate for a rural area, particularly when that area is not in a hardwired sort of telecommunications area. On this basis, the recommendation presented to Council today is that the change representations seeking a negotiated decision notice for the development application are approved, subject to the original conditions and incorporating the amended condition 13 with the slight typo corrected that I've noted. And a negotiated decision notice is issued to the applicant in accordance with section 76 of the Planning Act 2016. Happy to take any questions or comments, councillors.
So, and just for clarity before we kick on, in terms of then the recommendation, will it have that additional sentence at the bottom of the box actually in the recommendation? Because currently in our agendas it has the services condition, but it doesn't have the additional.
Through the chair, I think the recommendation has the original conditions plus the amended condition at the bottom.
And it should have 1 and 2.
The last sentence should read lots 1 and 2 rather than lots 1 and 3.
Okay, cool. That's it. So that's up on the screen. That's just want to make sure that's all there. Right. Thank you. Councillor Bimblecombe.
Just for clarification, Lot 1 is a large on the map, sorry, on page 114. Lot 1 and Lot 2 is the roadway?
Through the chair, Lot 2 is the proposed rail corridor. The rail corridor.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bimblecombe. All right, so that recommendation then, I guess, sorry, Councillor, no more questions? As Rebecca's alluded to, they're quite small changes, but lots of things turn on words. So the recommendation obviously is quite substantive there, and it's you'll note that the abridged version or the correct version now of condition 13 will now have those that new wording in it. All right. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Cruz, second to Councillor Daniels. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Right. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Councillors, we move to the area of commercial and corporate services. This relates to our policy governance framework. I'll hand over to Carrie Knudsen and she can introduce her critical staff member here who's in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the chair, good morning, councillors. In May 2020, Central Highlands Regional Council adopted a policy governance framework which outlined how council creates, reviews and approves policies, procedures and administrative guidelines. The governance section has recently undertaken a strategic review of the framework, and I now hand over to Millicent Bradley Woods, Manager of Governance, to provide an overview of the new policy governance framework for council consideration.
Thank you, General Manager. And through the Chair, as the General Manager of Commercial and Corporate Services has outlined, the report before councillors today presents the draft policy governance framework for proposed adoption by Council. The tabled report presents a detailed overview of the objectives of the proposed framework and attaches the draft framework. However, to summarise, the draft policy governance framework has been developed following, firstly, a strategic review of governance practice in consultation with management across the organisation. Secondly, a benchmarking exercise in relation to the governance practice of local government peers who are increasingly adopting 4 to 5 year review frequencies to achieve a level of sustainability with respect to organisational resourcing. And thirdly, recommendations from the Queensland Audit Office. As a result of the review and benchmarking undertaken and having regard to the recommendations of the Queensland Audit Office, Governance has identified a need for improvement of the existing policy governance framework in order to ensure continued quality of council policy and sustainability of governance practice moving forward. And also to streamline the process for related development of documents related to policies. The objectives of the draft framework are to streamline the policy development process through creations of categories of policy, further streamline the policy development process through introduction of provisions relating to material and non-material changes, enabling non-material changes to be authorised by the CEO based on similar rationale to enhance the ability of council to update policy in line with legislative amendments which have a non-material impact to ensure that there is continued currency of policy and to reflect minor administrative changes such as changed organisational structure. Thirdly, to develop a central register of policies, procedures and related documents to be utilised as the basis for the review schedule. And fourthly, to create the foundation for development of a policy review schedule with quarterly updates to council on progress, in addition to the provision of an updated policy register and review schedule. In practice, through the draft policy governance framework, Governance proposes to develop a policy creation and review schedule utilising the outputs of consultation with the organisation and findings within audits to develop an internal policy review schedule complete with groupings in terms of categories of policies. The policy review schedule and progress against the schedule would be reported to Council quarterly and would be distributed to impacted stakeholders well in advance of policy reviews to enable workload planning. The draft policy governance framework takes the approach that the policy development does not start and end with creation of a policy or review of an existing policy, and we seek to embed good governance practice moving forward by ensuring that policy is embedded through supporting processes, documentation and organisational education as well as gap analysis. The draft policy governance framework will also be supported by a toolkit which includes a stakeholder engagement plan and summary feedback table and a policy and procedure review checklist which has been developed by Governance to support the rollout of the draft policy governance framework if adopted. This concludes the report, and it is the Office's recommendation that Central Highlands Regional Council adopts the policy governance framework and repeals the current policy governance framework. Happy to take any questions from councillors and comments.
Thank you very much, Millie. Councillor Syker.
Thank you. Thank you for adjusting the time frame back to the 4-year period for all policy assessments. I just want some, I suppose, reassurance that in 8.3.2, development material amendment phase, is it my understanding that the governance team, that the whole works and jerks of policies, even the engagement, the research and everything is now going to sit with the governance team? Because I thought, and I don't, go into the operational aspect of council, but I thought, because we've had workshops where managers have worked on policies previously and then, some policies have taken a long time to get done, but it was always, I believed it was the department that actually developed a policy up. Then it went to the governance for review and, fixing it all up. But now it's going to be the governance team that does the whole lot, the research, the engagement. Is that correct?
Partly, Councillor Syfer. So the process would be led by Governance, but it would be led in collaboration and partnership with the SMEs in the organisation. So at the initial stage, we would be involving the SMEs, so the relevant managers and other identified stakeholders within that review or policy development process. We would go away and do some of that legwork for the managers and SMEs, utilising that feedback, and then following that, we we would then take a further draft to those SMEs and identified stakeholders so that we were able to ensure that it accorded with their needs. The issue with having undertaken policy review and amendment, review and development on a departmental basis is that sometimes it's lost that whole of organisation lens, and by governance facilitating that process, we can ensure that whole of organisation lens and consistency across the policy and procedure landscape within council. So that's the intention. It's certainly intended to be a very collaborative process with SMEs, and we recognise that we're not the SMEs in each of those areas.
Okay, thank you, because my concern was the length of time policies are going to take if it sits totally within the governance team. I don't know how big we're going to grow the governance team to, but if they had to do the whole process, I just see that is just going to be such a backlog, not only of policy work, but everything else in governance is going. The more you put into governance, the slower it gets, because let's be honest, we can't just keep increasing staff numbers in every department to get rid of the backlogs. We've got to start looking at efficiencies that spread the work across the organisation. So that is just my concern about that, is that you're going to clog the system too much in governance.
And General Manager, you might respond to that.
Sorry. Through the chair, certainly this is, we've put an efficiency lens over this proposal. So what we've had feedback from managers is that not all managers are experts in policy writing, but they're experts in the subject matter that they're responsible for. And so there's some time or wasted effort, I think if I could categorise it that way, when officers are developing up policies or reviewing policies without the governance assistance in that process. Additionally, we have the existing resources to implement this framework, so there's no intention to increase resources to be able to deliver this. And by delivering this process, we'll have a more efficient way of developing, reviewing and ensuring that our policies are compliant and effective in the delivery of our services, which would also then, by default, increase efficiencies in the deliverables of our services, because officers can reasonably rely on those policies. Because they're accurate and up to date. So that's where the rationales come from. Is that correct? Sorry, through the chair.
That's correct, General Manager.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Swiper. Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you very much. I guess great discussion on the actual process for the development of policies. I guess shifting my questioning or my statements perhaps to actually the other aspects of policies, as in the policies, the procedures, the guidelines that sit with them, the mapping against all of this, the state, federal, other legislation, regulations, etc. It's massive. And I just wanted to say a couple of things. Was that, as you know, everybody's probably heard me say this quite a few times, policy is the cornerstone of good governance. So, and I know that when I first came onto council, there's so many policies, and we did have a procedure where we were looking at by department, and it's. I think I might have mentioned that it would be great to make sure that any new councillors coming on, or the new council coming in, that they may have the opportunity that we had originally to have those quarterly meetings to actually go through a lot of those policies. That's that one point, but I just wanted to mention that.
I think, Councillor Moriarty, I think we ran through a lot of that background in our strategic session last week.
Yep.
To go through the background and what you've mentioned is probably some of the, I guess, review of that previous, I suppose, process of review. I suppose the sequencing, and obviously that was actually raised in that report. So a lot of that background was provided in that strategic briefing.
And thank you. I apologise. I wasn't at that strategy meeting. I just wanted to make sure that I had my opportunity to say that. Thank you. But also, I think as our organisation continues to mature our processes, I can see there's an enormous amount of work to improve, and I know that you put with engagement with the organisation too, so the whole organisation. So I just wanted to say that I can recognise there's still a way to go, and I think this is a great approach. So congratulations, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for my comments. Thank you.
Questions, councillors? And I think to address that, I mean, I think people are very much aware of the workload, and certainly, and that a lot of that will be about perhaps, I'm not going to say catch up, but I guess the opportunity of actually, in the broader process here, focus a little on the things that we need to address first. We'll get to that, and once we establish, I guess you'd say, our base camp pretty well, I think we'll be able to step up pretty quickly into making sure, as Councillor Seifert was saying, that we don't, start to bury ourselves with resources in our focus on driving it forward. And I certainly have a lot of faith in the diligence of our governance team. So, thank you, councillors. The recommendation is that we adopt the draft policy governance framework attached to this report and repeals the current policy governance framework. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Moriarty, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. You're pretty swift on the moving today, folks. Thank you very much for that. So, thank you very much, Millie. Councillors, 12.3.2 is in relation to our operational plan, 23-24, which is our Q2 performance report. And this sits again with General Manager Carey, and certainly Millie stays in that seat. So over to you, Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair. Each financial year, Council adopts its operational plan in accordance with Section 104 of the Local Government Act. The operational plan provides a project and activity-based plan for the 23-24 financial year on Council's delivery of the 5-year corporate plan 22-27. I now hand over to Ross Higgins, Acting Chief Executive Officer, to provide Council with highlights from the second quarter report in relation to areas of responsibility directly associated with the CEO.
Thank you, General Manager Knudsen. This is a first for me in this organisation, so I'm looking forward to providing Council with an update from the CEO's perspective. There are 3 items within the current operational plan that sit under the Office of the CEO. But prior to me going through it, I'm very impressed that we're sort of sitting at 23 of our 30 outcomes that either on track or we're monitoring. So I think that's really good at this stage of the year. One of the strategies within the CEO's office is the advocacy strategy implementation, and that is on track. Whilst this is a report to the 31st of December, councillors will be aware that we undertook a regional advocacy narrative workshop here a number of weeks ago, and that'll be helped to inform moving forward to the new council. So that's well on track. We don't expect that we'll have any difficulties with that particular program. The next one in the CEO's office is the infrastructure and service improvement in digital connectivity. We found that we'd actually submitted some funding applications under the regional connectivity round 3 and mobiles black spot round 7, but unfortunately we were unsuccessful with those. But we will continue working with the telecommunication providers in anticipation of resubmitting those applications in upcoming funding rounds. Also, we can add to that, and this is something that's probably happening once again after the 31st of December, just a bit of an update, that we're working with CHRC to establish a digital connectivity plan for the Central Queensland region. And please, Councillor Roth, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first meeting last week of that group?
Yes, Mr. CEO, and the next meeting will be in the beginning of March, as a whole, representatives from all councils in the Rock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last item within the CEO's office is the advocacy for the Regional Transition Authority to allow for a low carbon future. And these notes are in the report, but councillors continue to advocate through the Transformation Working Group for a Regional Transformation Authority, which would undertake as an initial task economic modelling with respect to both thermal and meteorological. My tongue gets twisted around that word all the time. Coal. Council has submitted a number of projects under what they call the REF program, Regional Economic Futures Fund, but we've also supported existing industry to transition to net zero by supporting mining companies with letters of support for their applications under the Low Emissions Investment Partnership Program. So a lot of this is advocacy stuff, and we'll continue on working on those as we move along. Any questions?
Well, we can do questions if you want as you go along, or otherwise we just, yeah. And I guess yours is reasonably brief. I see you got off pretty lightly. They're going to ease you in. Yeah. All right.
In hindsight, all these things happened before I actually started working here, so I'm learning as I'm going along, picking up this information as I'm going along. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO. Back to you, Carrie. Yeah.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'll now hand over to Arun Diaz, the Chief Financial Officer, to speak to his elements of the report.
Thank you, General Manager Knudsen. Councillors, for the Office of the CFO, there are two projects in the operational plan. One is the finance strategy, which is SP2, and the other one's the review of the procurement business model, which is EP3. For SP2, the purpose of the finance strategy is to understand Council's current state and design its desired state. The strategy is aimed at identifying threats and opportunities which either impede or facilitate in reaching this desired state. As at the end of December, meetings have been had with the consultant and with finance team, and significant progress has been made in Q3, which is not obviously reported in this report, but we have been also provided with a draft report, and the draft report has been workshopped with ELT as well. The review of the procurement business model was also recommended by, the Queensland Audit Office recommended that all councils in Queensland undertake a review of their procurement maturity levels. The procurement team recently undertook a review of its procurement maturity and presented those results of the current state with the ELT and subsequently to the Audit Committee. Based on feedback from the Audit Committee, the desired levels of the procurement maturity remain to be discussed and agreed with management. The procurement team will commence the review of its draft contract management framework in this quarter. Council's online procurement system is also being enhanced, whereby procurement planning, evaluations, and governance requirements like disclosing of conflicts of interests, which are currently handled outside the online procurement platform, will be included in and captured and reported in the online platform as well. It is expected that this project will be finished in Q4 of this financial year. Happy to take any questions, Councillor, before I hand over to General Manager, Infrastructure and Utilities.
Thank you, Arun.
Thank you, CFO, and through the Chair, good morning, councillors. In the Infrastructure and Utilities Department, we too have two projects which are identified in the operational plan. These are strategic project number 3, which is the review and update of Council's total asset management plan. And this was completed and adopted by Council in the December Council meeting. This total asset management plan is a collation of individual management plans across each of the asset classes and looks at the sustainability of investment with maintenance and renewal programs. Our other project, which is Enabling Project 2, feeds off the strategic project, and it is on track following the recent adoption of the asset management plans. These will feed into the operational and capital budget development for 23-24 and beyond. In some of the business as usual type activities achieved in Q2, Construction started on the jointly funded council and state government project to extend the seal on Wintoon Road, and council's maintenance crews worked with and around the wet weather to achieve a total of 714 kilometres of rural roads graded across the region. In the water and wastewater space, we supplied just over 1.8 million kilolitres of treated water to our communities and managed 538,000 kilolitres of wastewater, producing 446,000 kilolitres of recycled water, which was reused to benefit community areas and industry within the region. There was also continued work on the upgrades to the Dingo and Jeringa water treatment plants, as well as many other planned maintenance across the region. The replacement of a large section of the Capella-Thierry pipeline was commissioned and put into operation in early January. Again, happy to take any questions, councillors.
I was going to say, you've got the fund section, General Manager Infrastructure, but Councillor Carpenter.
I'm glad you mentioned the Wintoon Road because I had a complaint this morning about it. So can you update us on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, councillor. So the Wintoon Road project has been temporarily put on hold, given other priorities. So the construction crew has got the project to a position where we are comfortable to leave that project, move on to another priority, which was come on board from Transport and Main Roads, and then we'll come back to complete that project. So it was all part of the, I guess, planned movement, and locals, I guess the locals that are adjacent to those, the project stakeholders that we've been engaging with are aware of that, but I'm happy to take that on note, councillor, and if we need to communicate that broader, can do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Yep. Yep, thank you.
I'll hand over to the General Manager of Communities to run through his section. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Houlihan. Just some core services highlights from the communities area with regard to support and enhance resilient, safe, vibrant and inclusive communities. Some really great things occurred within the quarter around the Jeringa December Doings community event that was held in Jeringa Golf Club on Friday the 8th of December. 160 community members enjoyed that event. And it certainly offered something for all ages. Within the art galleries, our Central Highlands galleries hosted 5 exhibitions across 2 galleries. The Emerald Gallery featured artists included the Central Queensland Contemporary Artists Exhibition, Sue Smith's exhibition and a touring exhibition, Some Like It Hot, from Artback, Northern Territory. Springshore Art Gallery featured the Springshore State School exhibition and Liam DeBoe's touring exhibition, Sacrifice. In the quarter, our Have Your Say Central Highlands recorded 7,000 visitors and broken down as follows. So there was 2,300 in the month of October, 2,500 in November and 2,200 in December. 49 youth activities with some 2,111 people were in attendance. And in our libraries areas in October, the Emerald Arts Precinct Open Day was held. More than 100 visitors attended, with all Arts Precinct members participating and promoting their groups. Children and adults enjoyed various fun-filled activities, such as the sand art craft arranged by the Emerald Library team. This is just a few highlights, councillors, of the quarter, second quarter within the year. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager John. Questions there? Thank you for sharing. I think that was a concerted effort to make sure that we shared, certainly with our councillors and community via, I suppose, this streaming opportunity, some really specific detail of the actual things, those on-the-ground things that people get to see, certainly within your portfolio. So that's been a nice change to the way these reports. Otherwise, they get very data-driven, and that's great, but certainly we like to see the activities. Councillor Daniels. Yeah.
Thank you very much. General Manager McDougall, through the Chair, page 19 of the plan, or 150 of our agenda, just with regards to I see it's noted as monitor for the Emerald Flood Community Engagement, Emerald Evacuation Planning Project. I was just wondering what is impacting the timeframes on that.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. So the The physical work behind the scenes has been completed as far as the modelling aspects for the evacuation planning. That's currently being digitised. The majority of it has been digitised. We've engaged a community engagement specialist there as well to commence that work. I actually met with that person last week and we've kicked off the preliminary discussions around that. We will utilise the dry season, if we have a dry season, the dry season this year to get that information out into the community. Along with that, Council will also be utilising our software package to put that into our Guardian system, which will be the system that we will actually be able to track and communicate that information through. So that's operationally speaking. So there's lots happening behind the scenes there. Just a little bit further on that as well, we're doing some further work around the gem fields evacuation planning there as well. It's a lot less complex than the Emerald situation, but there's some work occurring concurrently there as well. So it has taken a considerable period of time, and I acknowledge that. It's a portion of work that we want to get right. There's just been some competing priorities there. So I do apologise that it is taking some time, but I can assure you that the rigours behind it. I can also assure community and I can assure councillors, should we, and I touch wood, but be put into a situation where we did require some form of evacuation, we've got the processes in place right now to act upon that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm glad to hear about the community engagement specialist, because I think for something like that, you really want to get you don't just want to tip the box, you want to actually make sure it's done properly so that people really understand the process.
Completely agree, and I think through the chair, this community engagement on a really critical piece of information will need to be ongoing as well. We have a fairly transient community and number of backgrounds there, so there's a whole heap of different triggers that will need to be looked at. So there'll be standard annual information that will be put out through community, but there'll also be an annual process of doing that to remind new visitors or new people coming to the region that we have this situation. So, yeah, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, councillors? Go, Councillor Moria.
Thank you very much. And just to add on to that comment too there, for General Manager as well, and to include us long-term residents as well, because after having lived through flooding, we know what we've done previously. So if there's any changes to how we're to behave as well going forward, we need to be retrained perhaps as well. So as we continue to improve those processes.
Thank you. That's noted, Councillor Moria.
Yeah, thank you. Now, is there another department to go? Sorry, I'll let you.
Sorry, I did miss one part of my question for General Manager McDougall. Page 26 of the plan, 157 of the agenda, the net zero strategy, like I note you're saying that it's internal resourcing that's holding that up. Like have you got sort of some timeframes around like how it's going to roll out?
Thank you, Councillor. Look, it is just some competing priorities there at the moment. I'm still confident that we will get very close to completing it by the end of this year. Once some of the planning scheme amendments are done and, when they say they're done, when they're at a point where they can sort of go off those a little bit, the team will go back onto this area. But I'm actually looking at potentially putting a few other resources in that area. It's really an important part or portion of work that we need to do at the moment to keep tracking this net zero, I suppose, life that we're on at the moment, and I don't want it to drop off, that's for sure. So we just might look at reallocating some resources there to make this happen. But, I just wanted to be very open and transparent at the moment. Those resources are elsewhere, and they will hopefully come back online. But that is at some sort of risk at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only just one part of the work of addressing climate change. The other part is looking at your business and impacts there. But What a shame. I won't be in council to when you complete it.
I was
but
going to say
anyway.
that, you've been a massive advocate for that, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Daniels.
So,
Sorry, go.
thank you, through the chair. Thank you, General Manager McDougall. Commercial and corporate services delivered a productive quarter within the core services responsibilities, and so I'd like to highlight in particular the Emerald Sale Yards has completed the majority of the capital works program for the year. The remaining project is the development of the Emerald Sale Yards master plan, which is scheduled to commence in Q3. 1,192 aircraft landed at the Emerald Airport during Q2, of which 503 were regulated public transport aircraft such as Qantas and Alliance. And of that total number of 1,192, 130 was medical transfer flights such as Royal Flying Doctor Service and RACQ Capricorn Helicopter Rescue. The customer service team, through their commitment of providing timely, efficient and consistent quality services, received 5,576 calls during the quarter and resolving 67 of those calls at the first point of contact. The Information, Communications and Technology team has undertaken a maturity assessment of Council's cybersecurity systems, processes and tools, with a series of penetration and vulnerability tests undertaken to assess the security of our internal and external council networks. The results of these assessments are being evaluated and will be addressed through the development of an action plan in Q3. Through the chair, I would like to acknowledge the governance section having prepared this report and gathered all the information to present to council, and we present the Q2 performance report for consideration.
Thank you, General Manager Carey. Councillors, any questions there on the Commercial and Corporate Services? Go, Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say, just to remind people that this is a new look, new format operational plan for this year. So I just wanted to make sure I mention that. I find the format excellent, the way it links back, highlights the projects and then goes through down to the detail of the additional information at the back there. So I know that there's different approaches to doing operational plans, but I think they're a great report card back to the community each quarter of how council's going against their corporate plan, but also their objectives set for that year as well. So I just wanted to say that, and I probably love to find out, but it's probably not the forum to do that, where the staff have actually felt that the format and responding to the operational plan has also been much easier for them, or a better format. But yeah, and then my only question, other question, Mr. Mayor, is that will council be doing like a newsletter, highlights of the operational plan to distribute to the community? Thank you.
Through the chair, and thank you for those two questions. In response to the first question around how this format's been received by the officers that contributing to the operational plan, both the preparation and the updates, as well as the governance section driving that process. It was an organic process that formed out of collaboration and consideration of the officers' time and efficiencies and opportunities to, I guess, portray this, the efforts that we that culminate for this financial year in a way that is going to be a good communication tool to the community, but also provide some efficiencies in terms of how we provide those updates. And so it's been very well received today. We anticipate that the 24-25 operational plan will have a similar look and feel based on the work done to date and the feedback that the manager for governance has received in this process also. So all in all, it's been a very positive experience for the officers involved, and it's good to hear back in terms of what the councillors or a councillor views in terms of the effectiveness of the way we've currently moved forward with the format. so that's good. And sorry, the newsletter, sorry. With regards, just with being in caretaker period at this time, we've not necessarily taken a proactive approach to promoting all of the achievements that council has in this second quarter. However, as soon as caretaker's over and moving forward, there's some great story opportunities that fall out of the operational plan every quarter, and the PRE team are across those opportunities and will, I guess, leverage off those stories to be told.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for this caretaker period. It's very annoying, isn't it? So, but anyhow, because it's work goes on and obviously people should know about it. But anyhow, all good. All right, councillors, thank you very much to all our GMs and all those officers that have contributed to that report today. Thank you for leading that, General Manager Carey. I guess the key word here is the officer recommendation, which is that we receive that operational plan Q2 performance report. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Carpenter, seconded Councillor... You're too fast. Councillor Burns, thank you. Thank you for helping there, everyone. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Thank you, Millie. Councillors, staying with General Manager Carey, we have the Emerald Airport fees and charges for 24-25. Thank you, Carey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, each year in preparation for the following financial year, Council reviews and sets its fees and charges as part of the budget development process. However, with the local government elections being held on 16th of March this year, the budget workshops will commence in April with the newly elected council. The Emerald Airport charges for the 24-25 financial year are best determined by council prior to April-May each year, as council is required to provide adequate notice, being 90 days, to the operating airlines. The proposed changes presented for council for consideration, if adopted, will be effective as of the 1st of July this year for the following financial year, being 24-25. With the assistance of council's finance team, council officers have reviewed the charges in line with the most currently available inflation indicators for December 2023. The proposed increase of approximately 5% has generally been applied to all charges apart from those associated with paid short and long-term public car parking. The rationale applied to these charges is that this is currently a strong income stream for the airport business activity and is heavily reliant on the uptake by the travelling public. To continue to encourage this use and provide some financial relief to the community utilising the facility, the charges have not been proposed to increase in this financial year. Council officers, with the assistance of the finance team, will review the Emerald Airport pricing model during 24-25 to ensure that the methodology is sound and reflects the value of the products on offer. And we have the Manager of Airport, Brian Griggs, here to assist with any questions from the councillors. And I'd like to put this report and the proposal for the fees and charges to be adopted by council for the Emerald Airport.
Thank you, General Manager Carey. Questions, councillors? It's starting to certainly, and I guess this not only relates to this piece of infrastructure and certainly fees and charges, but more broadly that there seems to be, a great deal of embarrassment here, but it would seem that the indexation and CPI seems to have levelled, and I guess the diligent work that certainly our CFO and his team have done in certainly preparing other, I suppose you'd say, projections, would seem that it's staying slightly above the preferred band, but obviously there's enough certainty to sort of say in projection going forward that these sort of numbers are a good, safe middle ground. So it's probably testimony to the efficiency at which the operation is run, that having such good control of those costs and those practical, I suppose, obvious trends in the building, that you're able to actually assess this very closely. So I think it'll be appreciated. I know CHRC will be presenting their report later on, and some of the work we did just yesterday in relation to certainly the resource companies and some, I suppose you'd say, disruptions to attracting people, bringing people, and effectively the gateway to the place is airfares into the region. So we want to certainly make sure that we're not impacting on that as to an extent where we're contributing something there. So it really puts a pressure on to make sure that we keep those at the lowest increase possible. So, councillors, questions? Thank you. And Brian, thank you very much for your work. I'm observing the walking wounded here. I thought that was the smallest man bag I've ever seen, but obviously keep well and hopefully that works out. Thank you, Brian. Councillors, the recommendation is there that we adopt the fees and charges register for the Emerald Airport for the 24-25 financial year as attached. Moved by Councillor Cypher. Seconded. Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? Done. Now, you've got to pass now, Brian. Thank you. Yep. Carrie. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Councillors, I indicated this morning that I would have a conflict here in relation to this agenda item 12.4.1. So I'll ask Deputy Mayor Christine if she can share this particular item. Thank you.
I do need this, I can't read that. Thank you. So, due course, I'll hand over to General Manager Infrastructure and Utilities for 12.4.1.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through the Chair, the report today is with regard to the proposed sale of excess raw water allocation owned by Central Highlands Regional Council. I'll take the report as read and just touch on the high points. In the Council has an allocation of 9,450 megalitres of high priority water allocation within the Nagoa Mackenzie water scheme. This includes 1,000 megalitres, which was purchased in 22-23 to provide additional water security and development opportunity within the region in future years. Based on Council's current estimated volume of usage to the end of the financial year, Council will have an amount of allocation which we propose to put on the put onto the open market for sale to maximise Council's revenue earning opportunity. The proposal is at this stage we anticipate that we will have between 2,000 and 3,000 megalitres of water available to go onto the open market, but the resolution covers that the CEO is delegated the ability to sell a portion of Council's water allocation up to the volume of 3,000 megalitres in accordance with the water regulations. The water will be sold as per the Water Regulations Act 2016, which is outlined in the report. I'm happy to take any questions, councillors.
Yes. Councillor.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm not sure, but have you got any idea of how much that amount of water up to at the 3 megalitres of water, how much that would actually gain Council if they did sell it, General Manager?
Through the Chair, so because it's an open market tender, we don't have, we can't put a figure on it. It will be what it is at the time of the sale. Given we've had a lot of recent wet weather, and the allocations are relatively high. The income may not be as high as other times, but it's hard to say what that may be. The proposal is to sell it in portion sizes, which we consider to be attractive to the market.
Okay. Yeah.
And give more people opportunity to gain access to the water.
Yeah, yep. Thank you very much, because that's what I was going to comment, given that, there is probably enough water around, but there's also never enough water as well. And, yeah, I think that was my main question. And my other one was, I did note there on page 197, a sale of unused allocations will improve Council's financial position. And I suppose my question was, how much could that possibly improve it and enable those funds to be spent on infrastructure, maintenance, or return to the general funds? Who makes that decision about whether that funding would come back into infrastructure maintenance or return to general funds?
Through the chair, so the funds will return to the general council
Okay,
funds. It may offset some of the maintenance costs that are already been planned, not additional maintenance costs.
Good, thank you for clearing that up.
Councillor Moriarty, it does say actually that underneath the budget financial resourcing, that sale of unused allocations will improve council's financial position, enable these funds to be spent on infrastructure maintenance or return to the general fund. So there's a possibility. Yep. Councillor Cruz?
Through the chair, just with regards, obviously we're just talking about, recent rains, meaning, there's going to be a decrease in the price. Given that it's a tender process, there is also that ability, like if the tenders come in and they're not of a reasonable nature, that would you consider holding on to it at all, or just taking what you can get?
Through the chair, we consider the best financial position for council would be to offer it at the price that we receive.
Okay.
Given that the allocation we own and the anticipated allocation for next financial year would still be sufficient for council to supply water to our communities.
Thank you.
So, no more questions? So the officer recommendation is that Central Highlands Regional Council delegates to the Chief Executive Officer the ability to sell a portion of council's water allocation up to a volume of 3,000 megalitres in accordance with the Water Regulation 2016. Have a mover for that, please. Councillor Brimblecombe, seconder. Councillor Daniels, all in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
I'll hand back to the Mayor.
Seat, no, all good, thank you. Right. All right, councillor, that brings us to 12.4.2, which is in relation to the Queensland beef corridors. This sits, I guess, with certainly advice to the interim CEO and certainly to General Manager Jason. So you're going to lead us off?
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, the report today is with regard to the continued Queensland Beef Corridors advocacy. The Queensland Beef Corridors is a collective of 7 councils advocating for significant road investment on behalf of the people driving one of our core industries, beef agriculture, within the councils. Specifically, the collective councils are advocating for infrastructure investment to improve the roads that form part of the beef supply chain, which is known as the Queensland Beef Corridors. On the 25th of August 2021, Council moved that they commit $25,000, which was $12,500 in cash and $12,500 of in-kind support provided by staff to allow for the engagement of an external project manager to advocate for on council's behalf with the council to seek funding for the project. In November 2023, confirmation of successful federal funding was received with $400 million, which was matched by the state government to the value of $100 million, bringing the total commitment to $500 million in committed funding. Following the successful advocacy of funding, the proposed Queensland Beef Corridor project manager would be engaged through a contract with the Central Highlands Development Corporation as the lead organisation managing the advocacy, and will coordinate for the ongoing engagement with the Queensland Government, the Commonwealth Government, Transport and Main Roads and the member councils within the Queensland Beef Corridors to ensure that the next phase of the program is delivered in a timely manner. The program manager role will be integral to ensuring the continuation and delivery of the Queensland Beef Corridors program as envisaged by the 7 councils. The funding of the program manager will be split across the member councils, the Queensland Beef Corridor member councils, with Central Highlands Regional Council contribution being estimated at $35,000. over the next, that will be carried out between this financial year and into next financial year, those funds. So the proposal, or the officer recommendation is that Council authorise the CEO to enter into the contract and endorse the relevant contribution up to $35,000.
With your indulgence, Council, I'll add to that. This is quite a moving feast, and you may have seen some of the political, I guess you'd say, machinations in relation to this. And I guess that they are certainly a lot of commentary outside of the Queensland Beef Corridor's participants. So as it sits at the moment, through the Senate estimates, there was an a revelation that perhaps certainly the federal government funding had been pushed back in the 27-28 financial year, and at the same time, obviously, in the Q-trip that is currently published, there is a commitment, as the General Manager alluded to, of $100 million in the 25-26 year. So there's now a bit of a disconnect between those two levels of funding. We spoke to and had a session with Tony Philp from the Department of Transport and Main Roads, whose remit is to actually look after the, I suppose you'd say, the strategic prioritisation of all of the road packages in DTMR. And I guess in that respect, he was advised, and it was through an engagement with the Director General that we had originally, that he could talk to the Queensland Beef Corridors about the establishment of effectively this project officer and the project office and a resource. So obviously that then allows us as local government, the local governments involved in the project, to have an input into certainly the prioritisation and potentially the development of those works. We iterated that clearly the disconnect between the federal funding and the state funding was an issue, and obviously we would like to progress it sooner. They are still certainly discussions about that. The Transport Minister, Bart Millish, rang me last week to say that certainly from their perspective they would like to see, certainly all, Queensland is not very happy about how, I suppose you'd say, the review of the infrastructure projects has gone. They would like to see more of the Queensland projects moved up. There is no guarantees about that, but certainly there is a prioritisation project going on within the state government in terms of what they would like to see. The Minister just wanted to reassure me that he would like to see our $100 million stay in 25-26, so that we can actually, I suppose, arguably, notwithstanding that if the federal government doesn't change certainly their timing, that at least the $100 million from the state would stay there. So I guess what this is doing is preempting the fact that we've, as a group, we've talked about a resource. We haven't actually progressed with the Department of Transport, the possibility that we may not have to expend that money. There might be a sharing of the resource by Transport and Main Roads, but it's making sure that there's a provision there that in the event that this happens in the next little while, there's certainly an awareness and a budgetary provision by this council to certainly participate with that resource. So the part of the recommendation there that still allows the CEO to negotiate that would obviously allow for the fact that if there was a timing where it needed to move forward or back, certainly it sits there with the CEO until such time as the new council is obviously in the building. Questions, if any? Councillor Seifer, yeah.
Thank you. I've got a few, actually.
Yep.
Number one, what other councillors are involved in this group? So we're not the only council driving this. What other councils?
There's seven.
Seven. So who are they? So you've got Rockhampton Regional Council, Gladstone Regional Council, Woorabinda Aboriginal Council, Banana Regional Council, the Central Highlands Regional Council, Barcaldine Regional Council and Isaac Regional Council. So there's two councils outside our ROC group?
Yes.
Okay. How much money are each of those putting in? If we're putting 35,000 in, how much are each of those putting in?
Jason, it's pro-rated. Yep.
Yeah, through the chair. So it is pro-rated based on the road length within the beef corridors, split across those councils. The total is around just over $200,000 for between the seven councils.
Okay. What I'm struggling to, so the funding's there, it might be a bit of a tie-up with it, but it has been announced. I'm really struggling to understand why we still need a project officer to manage all of this out of CHDC? I mean, with all respect, Mr Mayor, you're the main spokesperson.
Yep.
What's this person do other than what you do? You're the
Oh,
advocate.
it's quite different. This is a change from, I suppose, an advocacy project to an actual, I suppose you'd say, active role in terms of the Queensland Beef Corridors was fundamentally about funding initially, certainly aimed at the federal government, to actually improve sealing on 457 kilometres of state road assets. So when the successful funding was announced through the budget, clearly the only two parties that sit at the table are the federal government and the state government. The risk that I guess the successful proponents of the project is that it goes back to the state government and the federal government saying, thank you very much for your advocacy, leave it with us, and then we run the risk of just those two organisations dropping it back into their program pools and it disappearing, and we just stay as partial advocates down the track. This is making sure, and this was a real test with the Department of Transport and Main Roads, who could have said, no, we're not interested. This is about making sure that we stay in the process so that local government, who drove the economic imperative, the community imperative, the industry imperative that government didn't seem to understand, we drove that so that they did understand. We're making sure that we stay in there. So the resource will be someone not unlike, I guess, Jason, some sort of, the road advocates that we have in the road transport group that would actually drive the language, the prioritisation, is aware of the benchmark costs, and also to keep and to make sure that the projects in the Queensland Beef Corridors do match up with some of the other corridor packages, so that, you know, we don't have a corridor piece of funding on the Springshore-Tambo Road, for instance, that gets done in isolation to the Queensland Beef Corridor component of it. We want to make sure that's all coordinated. And the risk is, if it's not us driving that, all of the councils that were successful, then it's just at the whim of the regional director. And Tony Philp from Department of Transport and Main Roads made it absolutely clear that he said, I don't want to go back to leaving that responsibility to regional directors who don't understand the economic imperatives that we think the roads rightly deserve, and then shift it down into the end of 10-year packages. So rather than just a spokesman like me who does it, and the other mayors, and they've all had a crack at actually making sure they're strong advocates. This is about a resource that DTMR is actually going to engage with, and there's still a chance that it would be a shared role to make sure that we're not sort of having to advocate to a regional director to make sure that we get the prioritisation we want. We've got someone that's actually sitting in the building. So that's the theory behind it, and all of the other councils have agreed to this, and they've also, I think most of them have actually adopted their share of the budget. Yep.
They have, Mr Mayor. And if I can just add to that, Mr Mayor, so the next stage of the Transport and Main Roads process is their term for a business case for the project. So this is a very technical, it's a technical/program manager role that will collate information from the 7 councils, put it all together to provide to Transport and Main Roads. And when Main Roads come up against obstacles as to why a project may not proceed in a timely manner, this role will assist the councils in making sure we can open the doors to provide the information to ensure that the program doesn't slip.
Well, I'd like to see in this role that the advocacy is also about heritage, cultural heritage issues that have actually stopped roadworks, right down to stopping safety issues being amended on roads. I think that it's no good having someone sit in this place, in this position, and have all the buckets of money there if cultural heritage actually stifles road development, maintenance, improvements and all of that. So I'd like to think there's a hell of a lot of advocacy going to go on in that area as well, because that is a major issue on our roads today for all types of maintenance. And I'm brave enough to sit in a public forum and actually say that, because this is getting to a critical stage.
Yep.
So I'd like to think that this group and this position actually addresses the real issues on the roads.
Well,
So,
I think
thank you.
you're right, Councillor Cypher, thank you, is that this technical role, it might be a person sitting in Brisbane, making sure that they're obviously, you know, that sort of skill set. So the part about that that would give you some relief there, Councillor Cypher, is that person is then driven by the councils, so that not only doing the technical stuff but understanding, and the advocacy will still come. Certainly he'll be aware of it. The councils will still keep being strong advocates because you know, out of the group, notwithstanding what happens in a local government election, there are still 3, 4 of the existing mayors there that can continue this on. So, you know, this is not about sort of a what-if scenario here. This is just about making sure that in May, when we think this prioritisation is complete, that we will be able to go forward and establish this role, and we want to be prepared. And certainly with the worst case scenario is $35,000. The best case scenario would be a shared resource where we might have that cut in half. So, yep, thank you, Councillor Cypher. Councillor Cruz, yep.
Just through the chair, I was just going to say, like, there has obviously been an incredible amount of advocacy that has led us to be in a position where we're talking about potentially $500 million being put on the roads. Yep. So I think a prorated amount of $35,000 is a pittance if it means that we can advocate from as many angles as we possibly can to ensure that that tar actually gets put on the road.
Yep, exactly.
So, you know, because, you know, as we know, like under you know, in Senate estimates under questioning from Senator Canavan, we find out, you know, it's back to 27, 28. Well, if we can have a multi-pronged attack to ensure that that's potentially, you know, sooner than that, I think $35,000 is a small amount to pay.
I can tell you, and everyone can be on notice here because our transparency and streaming here allows that. There will not want to be politicians of any ilk turning up at Beef 2024 thinking that it's appropriate to push this funding back. And I mean, I'm saying that on behalf of our group. We had a plan. It's about a solution. It's not about, you know, allocating some money and saying, oh, it's all done, so that's okay, and then shifting it back 3 years. This is about, we went to Beef 21. We literally set ourselves up there. We started this advocacy there. And that photo opportunity that all politicians love to get their big hat out and their boots at Beef 2024 is going to be about making sure they understand that we have a far more aggressive, I suppose, agenda than just sticking the money there and having it driven back. So I think they're all on notice. And certainly by doing this, we make sure that we keep it, you know, it gets a little bit distracted when a lot of people are making commentary about it, but our approach has always been we sit at the table, we talk to the people that we need to talk to, and we make sure that the same imperatives about the day, from very much the day one that we spoke to them, are still the same imperatives. We need to make sure this product gets the benefit of this supply chain investment, and it still needs to happen, and it should have happened a lot longer ago. So pushing it back for whatever reason isn't appropriate. So,
and pushing it back means that there are far too many cattle on the road, far too many trucks on the road, far too many livelihoods at stake when there's near misses.
That's right.
So,
yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Moriarty.
Yeah, oh, well, first off, I wanted to say, you know, congratulations, Mr Mayor, and to all the other councils that have been involved in the project to get this far, which is fantastic. I misread, I thought there was 8, because it says the Central Highlands participate with the 7 other local government authorities, so I thought there was 8. So just, and when I did my calculations, I was thinking originally that it might have been 35,000 from each of them, which would be around the 280,000. Then I kept thinking, is this for a 1-year contract, or is there the opportunity to be putting this money into, you know, that the money might actually be able to attract someone good over a 2-year rather than a 1 year. And then you did mention, I'm assuming the shared role would be between state and coming to the party for that role. I think that I can see this role doing a lot of, coordination, as well as coordinating and collaborating all of the information, the technical information. My concern has been to make sure that, just reading here, for example, on page 182, with those dot points there, the dot point, say, for example, identify and develop approach to strategic procurement risks, such as resourcing gravel. My question really is around, or my first question is really around that duplicating, we're actually aligning so that we're not duplicating work for staff, that we're actually aligning at that council level. My second question is that this is only for state roads. And my third question is, I think that this is a great innovative approach where councils are working together, but also when you look at the number of state roads within the region that we're always advocating for, across Bluff Creek, Apis Creek Road, Arduard Road, Ralston Road, we're always advocating. Do you see potentially in the future that this kind of model could actually be applied in other contexts for councils? Sorry, I put three questions to you.
I'll go back in order first.
Thank you.
Clearly, when we started the Queensland Beef Corridors, it was about establishing, I suppose, an awareness of the fact that in this largest beef cattle herd region in the world, the supply chain risks are inherently greater than they should. We've got resilient people, great production systems, top genetics, everyone's tweaking everything they possibly can. And then at the end of the day, we get stopped by a boggy creek on a state asset. Clearly, we wanted to obviously start with a very, very basic road network. Local government is always optimistic. Once we get a wedge in the door, we'll talk about, but I guess it's getting the concept recognised by people and understanding that local government can drive this better than a regional coordinator or a regional director at DTMR, and we were prepared to do that. So we got our ducks in a row. So it would seem to me that if we can achieve and establish this particular resource, it is certainly innovative. It's along the lines of the inland freight route stuff that we've also run, our councils have run in terms of our engagement with making sure that even though it's their assets, ultimately it's our people, our communities that actually run along them, it's our products that sit on them. And we've driven that, we put them all on a bus, took them down the road. So what we're driving here is not necessarily, we don't want to be famous for being innovative. What we want to be famous for is showing people that when we talk about economic disadvantage or disruptions to significant investment supply chains, we have the best agricultural businesses in the world, but it's going to look really, really stupid to business partners when they say, we just couldn't get out of the region for a month. That's just not good enough. That's why we're driving this. So we're going to get to a point, hopefully, with DTMR where the establishment of this, and I'm being a bit bold here, that this will be a process where there's that better stakeholder engagement. Leave it to us to do the stakeholder engagement to make sure our processors, our feedlotters, our exporters, the whole works, they're driven from us, not from attending a committee meeting in Brisbane from their peak body annually. This is more about this really grassroots engagement. So we don't see it as us being innovative, we just see it as this is the proper solution to a major problem. And the best way we can do it is be the smartest people. We've got the information, we've got the people, we can show people why we shift and what we do and the quantum. And it's very, very compelling. It's just then up to people, well, invest the money. And that's what we're hopefully going to have out of this. Second part in terms of going back to adding other roads, and we'd like to think there's, once there's I suppose you'd say there's methodology and there's engagement, we should be able to run that across out to stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and to the point where there's no stages. It's just if we're going to engage in these beef supply chains, we will go to this stakeholder group and they will advise government on where that should be. We will still be at the whim of having to sit down and, find budgets where, people getting on buses and trains in cities will still be competing against us, but the reality will be better represented from an industry perspective and from a local government perspective, so that it might extend out to the bigger road networks that might go to local roads. So that's a wishing and a hoping. We're just trying to really get to in the front door at the moment. In terms of the gravel, Jason, that was...
Duplication.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So in terms of the procurement strategy enables multiple projects to go simultaneously rather than looking at individual projects, which is often the result of the Q trip. We look at individual, Transport and Main Roads look at individual projects, delivery of that project, then on to the next project. Where we're talking about a program of 500 million plus works, we consider it imperative that we have a strategic look across neighbouring councils, across the road lengths, potential establishment of new pits, and starting some of that front end work now, so that will enable the delivery once we hit the ground.
And potentially some of that economies of scale too, I guess.
Definitely, Councillor, yeah. In terms of the road network, there's a Queensland Beef Corridors website, so queenslandbeefcorridors.com website, which identifies all the roads that are outlined in the Beef Corridor program, the funding request and the commitments that we're seeking on all of those roads. So a lot of valuable information and some videos that Council has prepared on that Queensland Beef Corridors website.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think my other question, which could have been answered, I'm not sure, is that I still think it's a great and an innovative approach, that it could actually be, applied to the TAG group or whatever it might be for our region, which is a transport advisory group where council and the main roads linked together to look at where our council can advocate for, I'm assuming that's what that group does, advocate for improvements and prioritisation of state roads in the region. Do you see that there is that potential at all, General Manager?
Through the Chair, so the TAG group, the Transport Advisory Group, is specifically around urban situations normally, so urban traffic interactions. So it's got the Queensland Police, occasionally the ambulance come in, Transport Main Roads and Council.
Yep.
The Regional Road Group, the Bowen Basin Regional Road Group, includes a number of these councils that are within the Queensland Beef Corridors, and that's where the more strategic approach, Councillor Rolfe as the chair of the RRTG, we look at that more strategic approach, which is probably not to the extent of the Queensland Beef Corridors, but opportunities are sought through an advocacy around policies and procedures through the RRTG.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that, with being successful with the extra money to improve particularly the state roads, while just concurring with Councillor Cruz there, while it does benefit the cattle industry to be moving their stock through, it also, it must benefit the general public as well, because we've got, once upon a time, we had the singles, now the doubles. Now we've got these huge, big triple trucks going on the roads, and definitely the road safety for us normal travellers as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moreira. Councillor Roll.
I'll be very brief. Can I be very brave and say, out there and say that I think that we've actually achieved quite a bit, particularly in combination with the inland freight route, which you will understand is from, on this map, is along the Beef Corridor Road. So we've really put it out there to all departments involved in road networks and safety, etc. Also, right from the very beginning, it has been the smaller councils who have really come on board with this because they need to be able to purchase equipment and get themselves set up to actually do roadworks, because it is a priority for them, for the smaller councils, is roadworks and actually having contracts within council. So I just feel that for them, I feel for them, Barkey and Banana, because they've actually now got probably quite a lot of assets that are just going to have to sit there and wait until 27, possibly, before they can actually really get in and become the vibe. And we all understand what the viabilities and sustainabilities of councils is these days in Queensland. So I just say go for it. Just hook in and get as much done as we possibly can. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Councillor Rolfe. Well, look, the recommendation is there, councillors, and taking into account also what Councillor Cypher said before, I think we're all on high alert now in the future about our cultural heritage, the aspects of certainly road corridor planning, so we're all on notice. Councillors, that is a two-part one, the authorisation of the CEO in consultation with the Mayor, whomever that might be, to negotiate, execute and vary an agreement with the Central Highlands Development Corporation on behalf of the Queensland Beat Corridors, and second part, authorises and endorses payment of a relevant contribution of up to $35,000. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Cypher, seconded Councillor Cruz. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. And thank you for your questions. Appreciate that. We, as I said before, we have I suppose, an agreed position with all of the mayors that are participating in this, that we take the path of discussion and consensus. There is certainly a flavour of politics to all of these things, but at the end of the day, our obligation is to deliver for our people in our communities, and that's what that'll be the process we take. Thank you. Councillors, I think that brings us to item 14.5.1, which is the Central Highlands Development Corporation Service Level Agreement. Thank you, Peter, for travelling such a long distance to get here. Well, the interim CEO has given me the opportunity just to certainly welcome you over, Peter, and obviously this agreement between our organisations, you've certainly made it so a very readable and a very understandable document, so I'll let you go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors and the CHRC team. Always good to catch up with you on a quarterly basis. This report is to report on quarter two of our surface level agreement with council, which focuses directly on our operational plan. We've given you some attachments as per normal, so we've given you the full operational plan with the status update, and then the quarter two is in this presentation in front of us in a scorecard manner. But there's also the CEO's report that sits over that and gives you that sort of granular detail of what the team is working on beyond what's in operational plans as well. So I'll step through the scorecard and happy to take questions along the way or at the end of the process. Again, we always put our corporate strategy in there just to give you that reminder of our 7 priority areas and objectives. If we go through what's been delivered in quarter two, under the business growth area, we have delivered in October last year our support of CH businesses in that Indigenous Business Month. So our business facilitator was in Blackwater supporting events over there with some good engagement with some of our regional Indigenous businesses. So that was really pleasing. In the workforce development priority, there's a fair bit that's happened in that space beyond what's listed. So in that first item, the workforce development program, it talks about investigating initiatives. We've actually gone beyond that, and we have completed the investigation, so that's complete. But we've actually, in partnership with council, as you may recall, late last year, also stepped into that program of work now. So we've got the workforce development program up and running. We have an agreement with one proponent that's delivering the strategy aspect of that around accommodation and childcare. And then we have a second part to that program, which is focusing on recruitment advertising campaign, which is yet to kick in. So really pleasing to get that off the ground. We all know the impacts of workforce development in our region. They're not unique to us, but we're certainly trying to play a key role in looking at solutions. The Mayor indicated that we're in a workshop yesterday in Council with the Central Highlands Resources Roundtable Group, had a full showing, really good engagement from those companies and Council as well, and we'll take the findings of those now. We've prioritised some areas of further work into an action plan, and we'll have a final report mid-March from our proponents, our consultants, that we can take back and start we've actually started working on those priorities already. We've got a meeting happening as I speak with Qantas around airlines and all that good stuff. So that's a really heavy piece of work that's going to require a lot of concentration and further resourcing as we go forward. So we're looking forward to doing more in that space and sharing that with you in Council and beyond Council. The other area of development there was a contract delivery workshop that our business facilitator coordinated. So that was a really pleasing event in October. We do tend to get 8 to 12 people at those workshops, which is pretty good numbers when we talk to other regions. That's pretty good for our size of region, but it's not about the numbers, as you guys know. It's often about those connections that happen at those workshops and what are those outcomes beyond the workshops, and that's the challenge we face is following up with some of those workshop attendees. We do post-event surveys and all of that to try and refine our approaches going forward, but sometimes we don't get that gold, which is, a connection was made and something came of it. We keep striving for that. The other area of priority is advocacy and promotion, and in the last quarter we delivered the economic profile. So that's a quarterly piece of work, an annual piece of work that we do. It's an economic profile that has two aspects to it. So we partner with a group called RemPlan, and we get a lot of the data from them to put into a consolidated piece of work, which is the economic profile. So that goes out, it's physically out there, it's also digitally out there. But we also have the RemPlan product online all the time. So we pay a licence fee, we do the economic side of it, Council does the community side of it. So anyone can go online and look at our region and get detailed information in those two suites of economic and community. So that's really important for us. We do look at other products in the marketplace from time to time. They all offer different things, but at this point we're still quite comfortable because we have a good relationship with that proponent as well, and they do training that we open up to community and to council members so that we can use the tools effectively as well, and that can be a challenge. We do economic impact assessments. Some of our new team members in that visitation or visitor economy space have utilised it for some recent funding opportunities, where we can look at an opportunity and see what the impact's going to be for our region, noting that that's regional impact. So usually if it's visitation or a project, a CQ inland port, it's about what's coming into the region that gives us the value, not what's being used in the region. So that's a good tool. You'll know, councillors, that we changed our brand last year, and we've just completed that with our website late last year. So that was delivered in Q2, and we've got some pleasing commentary that comes back to us about its ease of use and the access to data and information on it. So we'll continue to populate that with all of our relevant public information. The next area is the industry development space, and we had a really good stepping stone into our new relationship with what they are currently Southern Queensland Tourism, soon to be Queensland Country Tourism. So we had the CEO of TEQ, we had the CEO of the Queensland Tourism Industry Group as well, and other important players in that tourism space here at Council last October, the first week of October. Had a really good leaders forum which engaged a number of stakeholders across the region. But we went beyond that and made sure that our new RTO did for Mills while they were here that week. So they actually did Emerald, they actually did the Gemfields, and they actually did the Carnarvon Gorge, which I went with them on all of those trips. And it was really valuable. They got to better understand our region. It was the CEO of that new RTO and 2 other staff members. So it wasn't just, you know, one representative in region. So that's a really pleasing delivery in October last year. And the other delivery is a piece of work done in our agribusiness space around a resource analysis project, and that was completed. So at this point, there's no ongoing work from that. It's just some analysis of where are the resources going in that agribusiness space at the moment, and where can CHDC and other parties play a role going forward. So it was a bit of analysis that we've sort of used in-house. The 6th strategy area, or priority area, is strategy and planning. So we did complete our renewed action plan for the Central Highlands Economic Master Plan. Some really engagement with over 30 stakeholders in region, noting that it is a renewable piece of work. So we're not going back out and doing the whole master plan again, it's just the action plan component. But we did utilise that process to refine where the master plan sat. So there was some refinement around some of the language used in the document. Its linkage to other documents as well, which is really important. So that's been delivered. That's a 2023 to 2028 action plan. So it's a 6-year action plan, and we're already going through and reviewing 2023 now. So we'll bring that back to our board and others as to how we're progressing in that action plan as well. Similar to this scorecard approach, the CHEMP action plan is along this line, so it's very easy to read and determine, you know, where we're at. And as you know, team, master plans and actions within them can take time. So we've put short, sort of medium, long-term and ongoing over that 6-year period. So there's a fair bit to bite off there. The other area is the former Ag College, and we've put completed in there in Q2 because the work that Council has completed was completed late last year. Our contribution to that has been CHDC contributed $100,000 to that study. We also contributed, we were asked to, you know, review the scope of works, which we did, give some stakeholder contacts that we've been dealing with around that site and precinct, which we did, and then we participated in the interview process with the consultants. So pleased to have that engagement and to play our part, and we'll work with Council going forward as to where that lands, whether it be with Council or other parties in region. It's a critical site for the region regardless of ownership. The other areas to finalise completions in Q2 would be our capability and accountability area. So this is probably more the governance side of our business, but important to put out there publicly. So recruiting, we all go through that, and one of our key roles is the Regional Development Coordinator. So we have recruited that role successfully. Deborah Barnes is her name. Deb came into region late last year and has got a young family, and her husband works in the horticulture sector. So pleased to have Deb on board. I hope you get the chance to meet her if you haven't already. And yeah, that's a really important role for our business and for the region going forward. And that role is doing a lot of focus on the workforce development area at the moment, and also the CHEMP action plan annual sort of status report. The other deliverables there are CHDC business. We do an annual report, And then we also have rolled out our brand further in that quarter, which is important. And in that quarter, we also finalised the Queensland Audit Office Statement of Financials, which, as a controlled entity, we are responsible of, getting that to council, and then it went through a council meeting late last year. So that was a really good deliverable. If we step forward, the Q3, which feels like we're almost finished that now, and thank you, Marnie, for pushing it through for me, get caught up in chatting. We are working on the major projects piece of collateral. It's a collateral that we do probably every 18 months to 2 years, and it's just a piece of work to market our region and showcase the confidence of the projects that we have on the go. So we're working through that as we speak. We should have our draft ready in March. I will say that deadline's going to push out. We're looking to actually release it publicly in June. We'll have an event in June that's our major projects event in partnership with the Queensland Resources Council. So we'll be looking to use that event as a way of getting that piece of collateral into the local community and beyond. But it's certainly gathering steam, the research behind that. The other areas in the industry development space is our Central Highlands Visitor Economy Strategy. It was a 2020 to 2022 piece of work, noting that we had quite a hiatus in getting our Visitor Economy Coordinator on board. We're certainly in the depths of that review now, of that action plan and that strategy. So we'll be presenting to our board on Monday, our board meeting is on Monday, where we're going with that particular strategy. We've got a draft in place, and then the stakeholder engagement that will proceed after that exercise with the board, just to let them know which direction we're going. A lot of what's in the existing strategy carries through. A lot of those themes, in fact, all of those themes carry through. It's just how we're going to work with our different levels of organisation, RTOs, TEQ at the state level and others. How do we play our role within that strategy is probably the critical thing. So our team is, looking at ways of engaging with our key stakeholders in region and beyond, so that we're aligning again with the towards 2032, the Olympics document, which is so prominent in that space, and also have been participating with Queensland Country Tourism's Destination Management Plan, so we can get that alignment as to where we play and what's of value for us as a region. The other one there is the Ag Frontier program. You'll probably know, councillors, that we don't have funding for that program anymore. That's ceased some time ago, but we do package a lot of our ag tech activities still under that brand. So we had an ecosystem innovation language in the networking event in region only earlier this year, and late last year as well. We've had a workshop that's focusing on ag tech and solutions on ground and on farms, which was held earlier this month. So we continue to prosecute the case for the value of ag tech in our region, and in saying that, our agribusiness coordinator is over in Western Australia at the moment visiting family, but she also went to the Evoke Ag Innovation Conference while she was there. So that's really important. It's probably the premier event in that space, and there's a massive Queensland contingent that goes to that, and a lot of our innovators in this region go to that as well and were there. So the beauty of that is that that event is now coming back to Queensland next year in Brisbane, which gives our community a little bit closer opportunity to get there at a, I wouldn't say favourable cost, but the cost that it costs us to get to Brisbane. So that will give us opportunity to potentially have more delegates from this region access that event. And then what's coming up in our priority area 7, capability and accountability, where we've got our endorsement from the board regarding our proposed FY25 bid with council, and we're refining that beyond that endorsement as well. And we've been on a systems project of creating a SharePoint portal for our organisation so that we can better manage our documents and access to information. So we're hoping that'll be completed by March this year. So that's the scorecard rundown, but I'm more than happy to take questions. And thank you, Marnie, again.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I just always love the layout of this. Now, you do a lot of great advocacy and promotion for our region, and you're always doing lots of stuff. Is there any traction happening with getting some of these priority projects, or any new industry or anything like that coming to our region, like the oilseed crushing facility? That's been around for about 15 years. Like, is there any exciting news about new industry coming to our region? I know it's a lot of confidentiality, so a yes or a no would be good, but I just need to know something is actually happening from everything that you do, basically.
It's a very good question, councillor, and it's a tough one to answer. We do have ongoing investment inquiries. Sometimes they're in the existing space, though. Sometimes they're in the existing space. So, but we do. I try and give you a sense of a couple that come to mind quickly. We have been talking to a United States company around a plant that could be of great value from a production perspective and a rehabilitation perspective. So it could be used as a plantation on mine sites. That could also then be crushed and be used if we ever get the oilseed crushing plant. We could get it used through that access to become an aviation fuel.
Yeah, I think you might have mentioned that the last time you gave us an update, actually.
So we've been on.
So that's still ongoing.
Had them in region earlier this month, which you know, it's always good to have those conversations and see where they go. And we connected them with a couple of our mining fraternity, but also other companies that may be interested, like our horticulture sector, are also interested in that. Another one is in that area of tyre recycling. So we do have an in-region proponent that's interested in where they can take that opportunity. And over the weekend, I sort of connected them with there's an accelerator program and a innovation hack, as they call it, taking place in Mackay coming up. And I shared that with that proponent to say, you know, there might be some opportunity to progress your projects going forward. So there are a couple of examples. The challenge, I think, with economic development is the silver bullet just doesn't apply. You know, it would be great to say that we're going to be the next Intel manufacturer in the, you know, Southeast Asia, and that's going out for our region. That would be going in a new direction, but that's not the case at the moment. But we are trying to promote that ongoing value out of the industry base that we have. So the technologies we've been involved with the state government around, they're doing a decarbonisation strategy technology roadmap. So they're trying to define all the technologies that will help with decarbonisation. So we obviously try and play a representative role there and better understand where that's going and whether any of those technologists that are interested in, whether it be agriculture or mining, are interested in coming into region and servicing from our region outwards. So we sort of take a mixed approach as to how we can access new industry. And then there's just that turnover of existing industry. We've assisted a couple of new owners of accommodation houses that are already existing in the region and giving them some background. We had another investor last week talking about what's happening in Capella, up in your backyard, councillor, and we give them a whole host of resources from our region to give them a sense of what is happening in Capella. We have local groups that are looking to develop from a sort of a tourism perspective, and we had a full sort of team meeting with them last week and gave them a sense of data that's coming out of state government and, you know, they've done a feasibility study. How can we help them improve that feasibility study? So those conversations are happening, and importantly, we do connect with, you know, our agencies like Trade and Investment Queensland and State Development, but mainly Trade and Investment Queensland when you're looking at that sort of international interest in region. So I'm sorry it doesn't say we're bringing manufacturing at a high level, but we're certainly having a lot of conversations.
I think to add to that, Councillor Simon, it's about the suite of information and data that the organisation collects and the consistency and the reliability there that you build up over time. So, you know, you now have federal and state government agencies able to quote a little more accurately our regional figures. So usually there's, you know, data and certainly some of the profiles that we create. And then things that background so that you're not going, if anyone has you know, prospective anything, you know that if you come to the development corporation, you'll get the best background, and then arguably, you know, over time we'll develop a nuanced sort of, I guess you'd say, technical information that will actually help people prepare something. You know, it helps through state development and even else those partnerships, and it's about, and that's why the promotional stuff that we do even at farm to ongoing. But there's very few regional events that actually attract 2 or 3 ministers, and they come because they know it's reliable and they know that they're going to get a significant share over people that know what they're doing. That's a really, really critical part. But you've got to come up with the data, and you're all the time building confidence partnerships between people. That, even with the resources roundtable, it's about you know, getting you know, all of the resource companies in the local government area to be confident that they can share information, even amongst very, very large companies, to collectively do better. So the outcomes there, whilst they mightn't be new business or new industry, would be a significant, you know, potentiality within the things that they already do. So I think, you know, that's what we're trying to do.
It is, and Councillor, the other thing too is we will review those priority projects, and you're right, they have been there for a long time. Probably just demonstrates how long it takes to get a lot of these projects off the ground. But in saying that, they don't always need to be listed in our public documentation. We might pull them out and consider some other things that we want to go after as a development corp in partnership with council and other stakeholders. And we might say, listen, we've had them there for 3 years or longer on our public documentation. It's time to still service and support and advocate for them, but we might want to put something forward that's different. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. And just going back to the point of having that data available for interested investors in the region, so having that data there to be able to ensure that they've got the correct data for investment attraction to support that, so which is a core part of what you guys do. So yeah, fantastic. And the other thing too is also while you can have the strategies there, or it's also being responsive as well to exactly what you're talking about there with you know, issues with providing industry and businesses to overcome some of those. So you were talking about there before, a General Manager, about the workforce development. When you were talking about mentioning the resources sector, that I'm assuming that is also inclusive of like the small businesses that are part of their supply chain, and what the needs are and how to support that workforce development and attraction.
It is to a degree, Councillor. What you tend to do is we've aggregated, we've surveyed and interviewed through our consultants all of our resources roundtable businesses. Not all of them came back and were prepared to share their data, but a lot have. So we've got a pretty good sample size. So they don't go into their supply chain in the sense of the data they give back to us, but they do represent their supply chain in a way, because the issues they're facing are the issues that their supply chain are facing. So unfortunately we can't have the supply chain at the table as well. That would be a whole other grouping of meetings, but they do represent their supply chain when they're at the table and do understand the connectivity with other sectors. They're very cognizant of the impact of workforce on other sectors. Not the impact they're making just, could be the case, but it's also the impact that everyone is facing, and that you may recall, Councillor, we did a project with that group in Council called CH Invest, and we were looking at the collaboration opportunities primarily at procurement.
Yes.
And what came out of that was actually there are barriers to procurement, which is the accommodation, the childcare and the recruitment. And so this project is focusing on that and taking it forward. So we didn't just leave it there and go, oh, that's sad. We're trying to play an active role in that space and facilitate that end of town, the resources sector, as a starting point, and see where that leads. So it's a big piece of work, and we've only really just kicked into it, and we'll be happy to share the final report at the appropriate time.
Yeah, thank you. And I did a little smile there because I remember us working on similar projects many years ago. But my other question, I just wanted to make the comment that, when you're talking to small businesses, they're really hurting as well, aren't they, with, attraction and retention as well. But my other question was also, I thought I read here about the accommodation study that you were doing, and I think it might have been with the resource sector as well, was it?
So that's the same project, Councillor.
Oh, it's the same project.
Yep.
Awesome.
And we are mindful, before, stepping down this path, we did engage with Central Highlands Community Support Group, Services Group, with their general manager or their manager, and got a better understanding of they were doing a housing affordable accommodation strategy or something of that like. And so we were just making sure that we were integrating, so two organisations in one region are not doing the same piece of work, or if we are, we should be considering how do we do that together. And they were two different pieces of work, but we have said that we would, happily share the outcomes of our work with them. So
Awesome. If that's Central Highlands Community Services, director on there.
Oh, yeah. Conflict.
So conflict. Talking about that one, but I only because I'm only saying that because a lot of small businesses are also and communities are hurting because we've got all these accommodation issues, and I guess it's an opportunity to flag it, but I know that you're aware of it.
So in that broader small business space, when we get to the recruitment ad campaign, and that will only be a limited window, it's a sort of a step-off campaign, we are already identifying the types of roles across community, not just in the resources sector, that are going to be required in our region based on what we know now with our data.
Good.
And then we will formulate a campaign around that. So it's going to be more educational and awareness raising for this region in a campaign format. Then what comes of that is the review and analysis of how effective was that. The challenge with effectiveness when it comes to jobs, so filling jobs, is that you need to get the data from the job provider, and not all the job providers will share, yep, we filled that vacancy or we didn't.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge further down the track, but in the first instance, what we want to prosecute is a positioning for our region in that workforce space. Yeah.
Awesome. I've got lots of things that I'd love to be discussing with, but I have to make an appointment to do that. But just to let you know, also when you're talking about the REM plan,
Yes.
We were talking about also the opportunity for event organisers, say for example Central Highlands Sunflower Festival, to be able to access REM plan, to be able to look at what the value add or a benefit of potentially the visitor economy around those kind of events as well, just to build the picture for those organisations. So are they able to come to you? And the way you were speaking before, General Manager, was or CEO, sorry, that you do offer some of those services, or to those kind of groups, or it's a fee paying?
Yeah, it's on different levels, so it just depends on the size of the work effectively. So you can engage RemPlan directly if groups want to, but we certainly do try to do some in-house analysis where we can, and that really comes back to getting really good data from those event organisers.
Yes.
So that's an important aspect to it. And again, understanding the data has got to be relevant to it's a regional impact. It's not like an event in Blackwater won't really capture the in-region value. It'll capture the value of people coming from outside region to Blackwater for the event. Okay. So it captures a different scope of analysis, I suppose.
Yep. No, got that. And I just was wondering, wanted to make the suggestion. I know previously we've spoken about, the opportunity to add some financial information per the quarterly report, but I was just wanting to make the suggestion that we have our operational quarterly reports where we've got a snapshot under the different headings, how they're tracking, and also a little pie graph around the different aspects to your plan, how that might be tracking financially for you, just to so that we can understand how the organisation's tracking financially over each quarter as well. It just provides a more good information. Okay. So just wanted to make that suggestion. I know we've spoken about it before, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? All good? Well, the business part of this says that we note the Central Highlands Development Corporation's quarterly update for period October to December in accordance with the service level agreement between both organisations. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Carpenter, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? Against? Thank you, carried. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you. It's probably my last public opportunity with council, so we'd like to thank those councillors that have contributed to the region and their service, and particularly those that are here that are CHDC directors. Thank you very much publicly, and we wish everyone, go well in the future, whichever role you pick up or in your retirement. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. All right. Councillors, that brings us back to the end of the meeting, I suspect. So, there's no later agenda items. Any general business, councillors? Councillor Rolt.
Yes, just to advise that the Buckland Recreation Group have their RFDS day on the 23rd of March. So out there at Buckland, and hopefully they will have it this year.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. All right. Thanks, Councillor
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Brimblecombe.
Just thank you for the councillors that are retiring. And I wouldn't say retire, but shifting positions. I've got a list of different things like for Anne, the sport and rec and roads. Thank you for the participation and the work that you put into those areas, the facilities and showgrounds. For Megan, for the environment, the tourism, the Reef Guardian in particular, and the CHTC. Thank you for your effort. And for Chris, and these things are things that stick in my mind. There's the stock routes, the roads, the CHDC, and again, the showgrounds. Thank you for the work that you've done. Much appreciated from me. I'm certainly everyone else. And the reason I'm getting in now is because I won't be at next meeting. So
thanks, Charlie. Well done. You're making everyone cry, Charlie. Yeah. Yep. All right, councillors, there being no more further business, and thank you for your kind words, Charlie. I'll declare the meeting closed at 1 p.m. Thank you, everyone.